of the Township of West Lincoln, held Monday, August 21st, 2017. I'm going to start by just excusing myself to start with. This is the first time, in the absence of the mayor, that I have had to chair this meeting, so any mistakes are my own. Certainly not the staff who've tried to be very supportive of all of this. I'd like to remind members of the gallery and the public, councilors included, that all cell phones, pagers, and/or PDAs are to be turned off. Additionally, for your information, please be advised that we are audio-video recording this meeting. Additionally, I know that our acting CAO was around to sort of check with people to make sure they've signed in. If you have not signed in at the side, please do so before you leave. And I think then we're ready to go on. So Councillor Bylsma is going to lead us in O Canada, and that will be followed by the opening petition by Councillor Chichok. So please stand.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Councillor Chichok.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ganan. We gathered together here today, intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. So I did mention that in the absence of the mayor, that I would be chairing this meeting. I did not mention as yet that we have also regrets from Councillor Trombetta, and until last Friday, we thought we also would have regrets from Councillor Rayner. So I'm very glad to see you here tonight. Thank you. I'm sorry that the circumstances of last week dictated you being here this night, but I'm glad that you are. So first of all, I'm going to ask if there are any changes in the order of items on the agenda. Councillor Chichok.
Thank you. Yes, Madam Acting Mayor. Section E, item N, I would like to have that moved forward to the start of this meeting, if I could.
Okay.
That would be under other business.
So we're going to put you in ahead of the presentation tonight.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else?
Through you to members of council, there is a correction to the agenda with respect to item 6D. It indicates that there is an update regarding 4-H activities. However, that will be undertaken under 6A by the members from the 4-H committee. The item under D, which says Anne Marie Chichok, in fact should say Michael Chichok, and should be dealt with under communications, as it is not an appointment. So that would be moved to a new item 8B instead of 6D.
Okay, thank you. Anything else that we need to deal with first? No? Okay. Seeing nothing else that needs to be changed, I'm going to ask, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest this evening? No? Okay. Okay, number 5 is request to address items on the agenda. And I want to note that requests to address items on the agenda are restricted to specific items following section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw. So public comment at council, there should be no comments from the public permitted at council unless A, a specific appointment has been scheduled, or B, an item is included under the other business or communications or appointment sections of the agenda and relates to a matter which would normally be dealt with at committee. So are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? Okay, so seeing none, we're going to move on then to appointments or presentations, and that puts you, Councillor Chichok, first.
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to move this item forward. As your representative on the NPEI board, a number of months ago, the board found an opportunity with funding available to partner with the local municipalities that are served by NPEI. And as part of the Canada 150 celebrations, it was decided that funding would be allocated to various municipalities to spend in celebratory fashion to encourage youth activities, encourage engagement of youth, and to celebrate youth today and into the future, as well as a myriad of other things that some municipalities wish to do. So I'm reporting to you this evening that the Township of West Lincoln has been approved and is being, the money is being proceeded with to deliver $11,500 to this community, which we hopefully will use wisely.
Okay, great news. Thank you very much. Any comments for Councillor Chichok or any questions about any of that? Nope. Okay, then we move on to why so many of you are here tonight. So I'm going to ask our award winners to join me, please, at the podium. And since you brought them, I think you should stand here and hold up your wonderful ribbons. Before I get started, I want to tell you I had to borrow a bunch of those ribbons from some people to decorate for one of the community care dinners. If I'd known you had those beauties, I might have been searching out some more as well. So is that on? Okay, thank you. So, as you can see, we have two young people with us, and in the absence of Mayor Joyner, I'm very pleased to be able to make these presentations tonight. When I first moved to West Lincoln, I hate to say it, but long before our award winners were born, I knew nothing about 4-H, but I began to teach at, first of all, Gainsborough, and then later on at Caister School, and through that, taught many rural kids and got to know a whole lot more about 4-H. My first instructors were my own kids because they went to Gainsborough at the time, and many of their friends were involved with 4-H clubs, and so they were always coming home talking about the things that they had learned from their friends. And that kind of got us very involved in looking at what was going on at the fairs. And so we used to go always first to the 4-H displays and then watch all of the various competitions because they were watching their friends compete in all of the wonderful things that they were doing. And one of those people who was a student at the time and went to school with my own kids was the late Tricia Vaughn. And probably you've heard of Tricia, you maybe even met. Passed away. But she went on from being a wonderful competitor to a wonderful leader in the area of 4-H. And so we were very happy to have known her over the time. Over time, I eventually came to meet various longtime 4-H leaders like Anne-Marie and Mike Chichok and Joanne Battersby, who I see is here tonight, and Annette Van Marum, who's involved with horses. I don't know whether you know Annette, but they were some of the early people that I met. And I've often admired just how dedicated to 4-H they have been for so many years. So years ago, one of the grade 7 and 8 trips, I don't know if it still is, was actually to go to the Royal Winter Fair. And that was the highlight of one of the school trips. And so that brings me to all this preamble to why we're here tonight. We have before us tonight two young people, 4-H members, who have each achieved great honors at the 2016 Royal Winter Fair in Toronto, Jonathan Dugdale and Matea Ludwig. Jonathan and Matea, Council has chosen tonight to recognize your achievement in not only competing in, but winning the showmanship class goats at the Royal Winter Fair 2016. We know that our various local 4-H members often do well in competitions that are held regionally, but by winning at the Royal Winter Fair, you have brought exceptional honor to yourselves, to your local club, to your leaders, and to your municipality. We're all very proud of you, and we couldn't be more excited to make this presentation tonight. We realize, of course, that without the dedication of responsible leadership, great things cannot happen. So I would also like to take at this time to thank all those who willingly put aside so many volunteer hours to work with our rural youth through various 4-H clubs. In particular, tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the leaders of the Goat Club, in which Jonathan and Matea belong. So Yolanda Youngblood, and Mary Rose, and Linda Lindsay, and Anne-Marie Chichok. Did I miss any of your leaders? Are those the main people that have worked with you and taught you and helped you over the years? Good. To all of you, thank you so very much. You have obviously worked long and hard coaching and encouraging these two young people, and through your work, you have helped them to achieve a very high level of success. Well done, all of you. So for the people in the gallery who aren't connected, you might want to take a look at the presentation display board that was brought with photos of some of the things that went on at the 2016 Royal, where these two young people did so very well. So going to the fair to check out 4-H displays and to watch the various competitions is still a highlight of the fall season for our family. We certainly look forward to seeing what's coming up next. So I have for each of you from the township a certificate of recognition. This one is Jonathan, but they both say the same thing. Certificate of recognition awarded to Jonathan Dugdale in appreciation of your excellence in 4-H goat showmanship, Royal Canadian Winter Fair, presented by the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln, dated this 21st day of August 2017. And it is signed by the mayor, not by me, so. In any case. And Matea, yours says the same thing, but I'm going to read it anyway, because you need to hear the words as well. So, certificate of recognition awarded to Matea Lidwood in appreciation of your excellence in 4-H goat showmanship, Royal Canadian Winter Fair, presented by the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln, dated this 21st day of August 2017, also signed by the mayor. So now, you want to do it? Okay, so bring your ribbons and your certificates, and let's have a photo so that I see that the newspaper isn't here tonight for some reason, so maybe let's go right through and into the center, and we'll. Now, I understand, Jonathan, if you would like to say a few words and tell people a little bit about 4-H. Matea, I don't know whether he's hooked you into that as well or not. He's going to speak for both of you. Okay. Floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so for those of you who know me, my name is Jonathan Dugdale. Originally, I got involved through goats with who at the time was my babysitter because her son was part of the Niagara 4-H Goat Club. Going along with him to meetings and shows enabled me to see how much fun 4-H is, as well as seeing how 4-H provides hands-on learning to all children who join their clubs. Their motto is learning to do by doing. I have participated in the Goat Club, Beef Club, Dairy Club, Sporting Chants, plowing, and I have also completed my training in becoming a youth leader. 4-H enables any child from country or the city to learn about any club they wish to join. Agricultural to skills club. And Niagara is not just an average 4-H county. Niagara is special and stands out because of their fantastic, hardworking leaders and volunteers who dedicate all the time that they can to helping their members succeed. Not only do Niagara 4-H members do an exceptional job at representing their clubs at local achievement days, they do an extraordinary job at representing their club, their county, their fellow 4-H members, and club leaders at inter-county shows. It is not uncommon to see a Niagara 4-H member standing at the top of their class in their shows. Matea and myself made a remarkable achievement at the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair last year, and we were able to achieve this goal because of what 4-H has taught us, as well as our phenomenal hardworking leaders. At the time was Anne-Marie Chichuk and Mary Kleinendorf-Dove. Once again, I would like to thank my 4-H club and leaders for all that they have done for me, as well I would like to thank the Council and Township of West Lincoln for recognizing the achievement that Matea and myself made. Thank you.
So, Jonathan, I see you were far more modern than some of us, and you have it on your. Would you mind emailing that to our clerk so that that can be put into the records of the minutes from the meeting? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So next up, then we have Mr. Glenn Boy, who from Campaign Coaches, who is going to give us an update on the Mirrors fundraising project. So, Mr. Boy, it's all yours.
Thank you. I believe there's a PowerPoint to.
I think we need that. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, Mr. Boyd's getting ready. Thank you all for coming. We were happy to celebrate 4-H tonight.
Yeah, I can do it. So just left. Which way? Perfect. Thank you. Tonight, I just wanted to bring some of the results of the fundraising feasibility study to share with you, to give you an understanding of what a campaign could do in this community. I had the opportunity to meet with a number of people throughout the last few months, and this report will kind of touch on some of the highlights of that. I'll go through that, and then if you've got questions, I'd be happy to respond to them. So we started out as testing on this report, looking at the objectives of our study were to test the goal of $1 million to see whether or not that $1 million was an attainable goal within the community. And we wanted to look at the capacity of the community. We also were looking at community perceptions. We wanted to hear people's thoughts and opinions about running a fundraising campaign for this project. And so we've asked a lot of those questions. We also were focused on, obviously, identifying potential contributors to the project, as well as potential leaders for a fundraising campaign. So those were the objectives that we were trying to achieve when we set off on doing this. We break our study down into a series of questions, and one of those questions focuses on, a number of those questions focus on image and awareness, trying to get an understanding of whether people are connected to the cause, whether they understand the plan that you have and the process that you're planning to go through. So most of the people we found out when we spoke to them began by telling us that they either knew about it through the local paper, they might have been at, there was a debate in council that some of them attended, but most of the people that we did speak to, it was either word of mouth or the local newspaper that they got their information from about this project and about the future of this project. But when we spoke to them, all of them understand and recognize that a community complex or a new recreation facility has a great impact on quality of life for everyone in the community. And that was kind of a common theme that out of the 25 people that we ended up speaking to, they certainly sent that back to us on a regular basis. There's a lot of comments within the report that you'll get eventually as we move forward that you'll see. And what we try to do with the report is we try to share the comments that come from individuals. So you see some of the comments that are the real positive things. You'll see some of the ones that people are questioning things or have some concern about a particular item. Those kind of things come out within the report. And it's good for you to see that because it allows you to see some of the challenges that you face moving forward in conducting a community campaign. So that's kind of the piece on image and awareness. And when we look at the case for support, it's all about how do we tell this story in the community and how are we best going to connect the people and engage people within the community. And it became very clear very quickly in doing these interviews that the whole theme around this project has something for everybody, from seniors right down to children. So it has the intergenerational thing, it has sports, it has social aspect. So it really becomes a hub of activity for recreational social activity in the community. And it focuses on healthy lifestyles and enhancing the quality of life in the community. The other thing that people identified as an important piece to put in the case for support when we actually start putting the materials together was that whole issue of the fact that a new complex, a new recreation facility, has the ability to attract families to the community. Certainly the developers that we spoke to were very interested in the project because of the fact that it enhances their ability to sell homes. But we also found out from businesses that they were excited about it too, and they were excited because they can get employees, they can attract new businesses to the community and stuff. So there was lots of benefits to seeing that. We need to focus that theme and those those comments around the materials that actually market this as we move into a campaign. So there was some pretty positive thoughts around the fact that it's something for everyone. One of the things that did come out in a number of interviews was clearly that that the fact that a complex that was broad enough, that had a walking track, that had the exterior, the community meeting rooms, had the gymnasium, had the exterior pieces with the splash pad and skate park. That did give it that sense of something for everyone, but many people commented that if it was just a matter of repairing the arena, we wouldn't have the population, enough of the population, to support a project like this. Because they viewed it as if all it was about hockey, then putting a new project up wasn't going to gain the support. It was about not a standalone arena. It was more about a multi-use recreation facility and having that ability to put that kind of activity into the community. So those are the things that we look at that were mentioned in terms of trying to get the case put together. We moved on to some of the challenges that we would face, and we asked the question if what would be the challenges you think they would face trying to raise $1 million in the community. And clearly the number one was that there wasn't a lot of businesses in the community. There also was a sense that with the new development within the community that there's that Smithville, there was a perception that Smithville was becoming a bedroom community. So there might not be as much of an attachment to community as there was with the population of Smithville as it stands today. So as more people come in, they may be coming here to sleep and stay and go off to business and play. So they may not have that sense of community that is necessary to make a commitment to a project. So that was kind of a sense of what that challenge would be. It was also noted many times that there was lots of discussion around this project and that it sometimes was a controversial project over the last few years in terms of getting it to the point of moving forward. And certainly the people that we spoke to in the community were well aware of that and felt that it's time to make that move and move on and ensure that we get a project. They also suggested that there probably wouldn't be a lot of support for the farther out you go. So the surrounding communities within West Lincoln might not be as interested in the project as the people in Smithville because it's viewed as a Smithville project to some of those individuals. So one of the tricks there is going to be trying to reach out into that agricultural community and get beyond Smithville itself. I don't see that as a problem to overcome, that's going to be difficult to overcome. It's about putting the structure together correctly when we move forward in a campaign. So those were the major challenges that were identified during it. During the study, we also asked the question about potential for support and where those individuals would think that there would be support for a project like this. And the majority of the people believed that, yes, the goal of $1 million was an attainable goal. But they also thought that we were going to see that through the rural side of the community, through businesses, through personal gifts, through, I know that there's not many service clubs, but through any service clubs that were there, and certainly some community engagement as a way of getting there. So they believed that there was an opportunity to really bring all the community together around a project like this. It was stated that a few people thought that the goal was big for a small community, and that's not unusual to hear that kind of thing. And some questioned whether there was the availability of major gifts. When we ask this question, we always position it around an 80-20 rule, where 80% of the donations will come from 20% of the donors. So in order to get to $1 million, we need to find several gifts in excess of $100,000, and would they be available? So we're trying to see whether or not the community, whether there are individuals in the community that could quantify for us the potential or the capacity of gifts of in excess of $100,000. So it's not unusual to see that some would say that is not necessary. They wouldn't be aware of whether they would be available or not. So they question that major gift thing. So just quickly, I'll flip through some of these stats. This was the question on the $1 million. We interviewed 25 people. 24 are represented here. 2 individuals joined in the interview that had some important opinions to share. So 50% 15 of them said yes, 3 of them said no, they didn't believe it could, and 6 said they were unsure. The 6 that are unsure just don't have a term of reference as to what it takes to raise $1 million in the community, and they needed to understand that a bit more. So, so that's a very positive thing that a good portion of the population said yes. In this case, it was if they were given the opportunity to support the project, would they actually make a contribution? 18 of the 24 that we spoke to said yes, they would make a contribution, so they will financially support the project. 3 of them said no, and 3 of them still need more information, so they're not sure at this point. But here's what that looks like, and I think it's important for you to understand this piece, because that personal support out of those 16 gifts, one of those gifts was in excess of $250,000. So someone has suggested that should the project go ahead, they would be interested in supporting a donation of $250,000 or more. So that's an important part to recognize. But if you go down through that list, it's pretty self-explanatory. Another one at 100, and a couple at 50, and then down the list. 16 gifts. If we took the low side of the projection versus the high side of the projection, on the low side, we're about $600,000 that's identified, where we could probably go out this week and cultivate that $600,000 and know that that potential is there for sure, out of 16 calls. And that's the important part of this discussion. On the high side, should they do what they said that they could possibly do, it could be over $1 million, on that high side. And so this comes from not those who suggest that we should speak to this company or that individual, but this comes from the individuals we're speaking to directly. So with the businesses and individuals who we spoke to within the community, these are their responses. They're the ones that said, yes, they would consider a gift at that level. So moving on, we looked at the leadership issue, and we asked if there's an obvious champion that could lead the project in the community. We really try to get it to be a community project, so we want a good representation of communities. So that means we want somebody from the rural side of the community, somebody from the municipality, and certainly we do need business leaders and individuals that would take on roles there. There were 17 names suggested throughout the study. It's a little surprising to me that there's not more names suggested, because people usually tend to throw out names. In this community, they're not as quick to throw out names as to those who might be good candidates, even knowing they're not really committing anybody to any cause. They're just stockpiling a list of names. But there are 17 names that were identified by the interviewees that said that they thought they would make good leaders within a campaign. The next question was, obviously, would you be interested in taking on a role within the campaign? And 6 of them said yes, that they would. That's very high compared to most in most of our studies. 11 of them said no, that's not what we do. I wouldn't do that. And 7 of them just want to find out a bit more about what's going to happen, what a campaign looks like, and how it would be structured before they made any decisions. So that's a positive thing, because it does suggest to us that we know that there is some potential and there is some people that we might be able to attract to a project like this to help structure a campaign within the community. So we get to the recommendations, and the first recommendation for us is to say that we look at the goal, we look at the potential of the goal. You asked us to test whether or not there was the ability to raise $1 million, and we believe at this point, with having spoken to 25 individuals in the community and knowing that we have that bottom end of 600 and the potential of possibly $1 million from that group, we believe that it's a $1.5 million goal is attainable for you in this community. So I think that's a bit of good news for you, that I think that the potential's there. The more positive that we get out in the community, and the more that we start to position the project in the community, that will enhance people's interest in it and start to bring them through, get people more interested and engaged in the project. The timeline on the project is going to be critical and important to move quickly. And the reason it's important to move quickly is because of the timeline of your construction. Because the day that construction is completed and the doors are open, the community is not going to respond to a capital gift, quite simply because they'll believe that you found the money somewhere, you did it, and it's open and up and running, and they will look at their sense of they paid through their taxes, or somehow you came up with the money to make it happen. So therefore, you not likely even need my gift. So the importance of putting a campaign together is to make sure that there's construction going on and it's paralleling some of the construction, but you complete the campaign prior to construction being completed. So in order to do that, we know on a timeline, a $1.5 million goal in a community of this nature, we would need roughly a year to put that campaign together. From the readiness stage, where we're putting together the components of the campaign and the infrastructure of the campaign, right through the wrap-up of the campaign. So that's the structure that we're looking at, is September to December, might be September to November. It depends on how quickly we can put the team together and get the materials in place and move that forward. That would be an important component to see how that happens. As soon as we get that together, we would start moving into what we refer to as our quiet phase of the campaign. That January to September time would be two components to the campaign. It would be a quiet phase. We would be looking at the major gifts and how we would secure those. And then we'd go into a community phase where we'd be engaging more of the community. We try and complete that. So we believe that you have the potential to raise $1.5 million between now and next September in terms of commitments. So at the end of the campaign, you would have pledges and commitments of $1.5 million, or in excess of $1.5 million. Most of those gifts would be considered on a pledge process of 5 years. So they would be, traditionally what we see is at the end of a campaign, we see about a third of the money in cash and about 2/3 of it pledged out over the rest of the time period. So those are the two recommendations. There's others that supported within the document, but I think for tonight's purposes, this gives us a sense of where we're headed. We would break the campaign down into different divisions, and we'd be looking at trying to put together a community-based team that could support these divisions. So personal gifts, business and industry, community engagement, user groups, and public relations and communications. We always want to have the public relations communications committee part of our team, because we need to get those messages into the community so that it's not cold calling this community. We're getting the information out, we're getting people well informed about the project as we're moving forward, and we think that there's capacity to do that. Obviously, the bulk of donations would come out of personal gifts and business and industry. Traditionally, those two kind of go hand in hand, because in a community like this, you're talking to individuals who are owner-operators of businesses which have the capacity to give personally or give through their business. So it really becomes a tax issue for them and how they'd like to do that. But that's typically how we do that. So we would break it down into divisions. The divisions would line up like this. So an organizational chart would for us would look council at the top of the project, overseeing the project, the township staff. Brent is kind of the contact person as we move forward. We would be looking at putting in place honorary advisors. Those are individuals who, by virtue of their alignment to the project, they lend credibility to the project. So long-standing family names, individuals who may have been well recognized within the community in the past for their civic work, and so there's an opportunity here. What we're trying to do here is attract others to see that if this family's involved, or if that individual's involved, or if that company's involved, then it's okay for us to support it as well. So we look for a group of honorary advisors if we can. Sometimes that comes down to one honorary chair of the campaign. Sometimes it's a group of advisors. When we come to the structure of the campaign, we look at a chair, a deputy chair, and then divisional chairs to run through it. What we do need is we need the support of the township staff. We also need the support of a campaign coordinator that gets put in as a part-time person through the township. And that's outlined well in the proposal. You'd see that in the previous proposal. So that's the structure that we look at moving forward. Our next steps would be immediately getting into that stage of the readiness, where we're focusing on preparing materials, getting the information together that's necessary, doing some prospecting, and making sure that we recruit the right team and orient that team. The quiet phase is a focus on gifts of $25,000 or more, and we'd be looking at running that. We try and put our quiet phase as usually January to May, but we wouldn't stop it if there was opportunities in the future, so we'd move that forward. Then the community phase would probably kick in around May or June and go through the summer. and wrap this campaign up by October. The wrap-up is really a chance to circle back and make sure that we closed all the loops on all the calls that were out there, and the opportunity to put in a pledge redemption process and a mechanism to help secure the gifts as they come through as the campaign completes. So those are the next steps. If we looked at a gift chart, just to give you a sense of what it takes to raise $1.5 million, we'd be focused on where we could find a gift of $500,000, and we'd be trying to identify that potential. Another gift at $250,000, one at $100,000, 5 of them at $50,000, 10, 25, and then down. That would complete the campaign if we were able to do that. That 25, 30, 33 gifts identified on this. Now, we don't always achieve exactly that structure, but usually we're able to come pretty close to that. So we would probably be able to get to this campaign in the range of about 50 to 60 gifts max in terms of the major gifts. But we want to have the opportunity for everybody in the community to support it as well. So there'll be lots of other people coming in with gifts that don't fall within this chart. But certainly in order to achieve the $1.5 million, we have to focus on where we're going to find those major gifts and move that forward. So that's pretty much it to give you a sense of where we're headed. We do believe there is the capacity in the community. We certainly know where there's some strong leadership out in the community that's interested in this project, and where there is a potential some very significant major gifts to move forward. So I'd open up for questions.
Well, thank you for a very positive response to what you've found in the community. That's very encouraging to all of us. Is there a member of council who has a question or a comment or anything you want to ask Mr. Boy about? Councillor Chichot?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Boyd, thank you very much for this presentation. And my questions are about recognition and naming. So sponsorship usually comes with that, with the idea that we nurture the sponsorship as well. So people who would give $10,000 or on your gift chart at $5,000 might want to have a brass plaque, and the other ones might want to have a glass window. There's something that immortalizes the giving of the most senior gifts, and I started at the bottom specifically.
Sure.
So there's the part about what would we be doing for people who wanted to sponsor at higher than what would be expected as the normal out-of-pocket gift, and secondly, when will you be coming back with opportunities for someone to say, if I was giving, let's not get this wrong now, but if someone were be giving $500,000,
Yes.
and that was what we wanted, either to name the idea of it or to name a room, that kind of has to get aligned with that part of the project, and it has to get done before you go out and start motivating people to write their checks. So when would council be hearing that information from you?
So during that readiness phase of the campaign, so between now and December, if that should be the way you proceed with it, that would be the time where we'd be looking at naming opportunities, and we'd be looking at recognition as a whole, and we'd be discussing that with the team that we're recruiting and moving that forward. Nothing happens until council approves those naming opportunities. So during that readiness phase, no one is asking anybody in the community for money. We are simply putting the structure and the infrastructure of the campaign together and doing some prospecting so we know where to go once we're ready to move the campaign. We do need the approval of naming opportunities, and traditionally what we do with naming opportunities, rather than sponsorships, we're looking at them as philanthropic gifts. So they're gifts that we would recommend are there for the life of the facility. So their donations and recognition for those donations would be there for the life of the facility. So this isn't an opportunity to say every couple of years we change the name on the facility and move that. What we're trying to do is build community. We're trying to build lasting legacies within that community. And so we encourage people to be a part of that so that they can get that lasting legacy within the community. And so we used to say in perpetuity, but now it's simply the life of that facility. So that would be naming opportunities. Those are the specific areas that are over and above. And what we would do is we'd be looking at, to identify those naming opportunities, we'd be looking at the plans and taking what we felt were good quality recognition within that without commercializing the building, but finding good quality areas that we could give some recognition for on behalf of it. We would then look at, in terms of setting those levels of what is the right amount to ask for within those, in no way reflects the square foot cost. It is more about a marketing opportunity. And so it's about what parts of that project provide more profile for individuals. So let's not put the name outside yet. We'll deal with that one as a separate issue. But internally, if there's a number of rooms, like those community meeting rooms, or the arena, or the gym, or even the lobby, looking at those as good quality naming opportunities for someone to leave a legacy within this community. Those would be identified. What we would do then to find the right numbers is we'd look at that gift chart. And so what are the numbers that we need to achieve in order to get to that $1.5 million? We would look at the outcomes of the study. What were the numbers that were identified, that previous chart that you saw, of those 16 gifts, the types of gifts that were identified. And we'd like to try and provide an opportunity to have a range of gifts, a range of levels there that people might be able to support, because we know that there's lots of different gifts. So typically, naming opportunities that are beyond the donor recognition wall are in that range of $25,000 and up. That's typically where they start. Sometimes they go a little bit less, depending on the number of opportunities within the building. So how much we can dissect that, where we find out good quality opportunities. No one's going to do the janitor's room or the washrooms or anything like that. That's not going to happen.
No, and through you, Madam Chair, what I was thinking about splash pad,
Yep.
or the skateboard park, where we were told during the study period the construction costs were approximately $100,000 or something. Those would be the kinds of appropriate gifts that in
Yes, absolutely.
in your gift chart have donors that are looking for that kind of thing. So that's really where my head was at.
So there would be those, and then the general recognition, we would encourage you to do a donor wall of some sort within the facility that acknowledges all the gifts to the campaign.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other member of council have a question? Councilor Rayner.
So down the road, you would have a list of potential areas within the arena that would be available to have sponsorship, and you would have determined the amount that you felt would qualify for the individual. And at that point, it would be brought to the public.
It would be brought to
It
council.
would be brought to council, sorry, once it's approved, then it would be brought to the public.
Then it would be used as a tool within our kit that we're making calls, because this campaign will be a very personal campaign. It'll be face-to-face calls, not just throwing information out and hoping that we get a response. So we're going to be very systematically approaching the community and engaging people in the community to make that happen. So it would be one tool within the kit that would allow us to help to elevate people's sites and allow them to see that they could gain some recognition for themselves, their business. Knowing that whatever name, when someone makes a donation, if someone made a donation of $100,000 and they chose a specific area, they wanted to name the arena or whatever it happened to be within that facility, the approval of their name or the name that they choose to put on that has to come back to council first before it gets placed into the process. So if it's a long-standing name, so the example would be, you all probably familiar with the Fleming Center, there wasn't a whole lot of objection to calling that project the Fleming Center, quite simply because there was a long-standing family that had a good reputation within the community. So that will always be council's decision before a name is made.
Through you, and how would you know who to contact? Do you have a list already prepared of people who might be interested?
So we through the 25 that we spoke to, 16 of them said yes, they would give. We could probably, in the next month, go out and have that low end of 600 pretty much in hand, and the high end of as much as $1 million. We don't know where all the gifts are going to come from. When we qualify a campaign, we are looking at not just receiving responses of where these individuals that we interviewed believe we should go in the community, but what they would do themselves. And so that's the representation of what they would do themselves. If that representation, knowing that the individual said that this is what they would consider doing, adds up to 40 to 50% of your overall goal, we have a good chance of completing that. Simply that we talk to a small sample size within the community and can expand it out to the general community. The other thing that happens in a project like this is that as soon as they see the project coming out of the ground and starting to move forward, the community really rallies around projects like this. And we found that towns of your size have been very supportive of projects because it is the gathering spot of the community. It is the one spot where everyone will at some point be a part of. There's no specific hospital within your community. I know you have a West Lincoln Hospital, but it is up the street a bit. So those are usually the projects that people rally around. Community centers or recreation centers are kind of second to hospitals in most communities and smaller communities in Ontario. So we know that that as soon as we start the activity of a campaign, it will excite people and get them moving forward.
Councillor Bilsma or Val? Nothing? I just have one quick question myself,
Sure.
just sort of along the line of what Councillor Chichok was asking. And that, I was just wondering, as you sort of met with these early people, if you had a sense that some of them already had in mind that it was sort of not a general donation they were making, but they themselves had already some specific, like somebody was particularly interested already in the arena or the library or whatever. Was there a sense of that kind of questioning back from the people you spoke to?
We didn't get into a lot of recognition during the discussions. It is a topic that comes into the equation periodically, but during the interview process with this study, it wasn't. No one was tying their name to any specific thing or saying that they needed to have that in order to make a donation.
So
They were looking
there
at the
wasn't
project
anything
as a whole.
that made them, and that I wondered about that.
They were looking
Okay,
at the
thank
project
you.
as a whole and how it enhances the
Good,
quality of life in the
good,
community.
okay. Thank you very much. Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you
Great.
very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Barr. Okay, so next on appointments is Mr. Hank Hutima from Kales Engineering and Matthew Deline, Architecture 49 Ball Construction, who are going to give us an update on the Mures design.
Thank you, Madam. Acting
More
Mayor.
good news.
Yes. Councillor, staff, gallery. I'm here really to give you an update of where we're at during the process. The last time we met was in April when it was awarded to Ball Construction. The precursors to that obviously was a pre-qualification, the shortlisting of the generals. Obviously, April was a big day for us when the project was approved, as well as Ball Construction, who was represented here. Since then, we've been meeting very frequently, if not weekly, if not more. We've gone through the design program. The concept that was presented as part of their submission was based on the terms of reference, based on option B of the study that was done last year. And since then, we've developed it and enhanced the design a little further. A bit of a recap: the arena is a regulation-sized ice pad, seating for about 450 people. There's 6 change rooms plus smaller ancillary change rooms. Upper-level walking track was a separate price that was approved at council, which is a nice feature. We've got office for the facility managers as well for staff. The staff office will be located in the reception area or in the lobby, so they can act as a reception. Matthew Delane, who's the architect from Ball Construction from Architecture 49, he will follow me, and he'll give you a more graphical representation of the design, showing you drawings and showing some renderings and such. The library itself, 12,000 square feet. It has space in there for a display area for the museum and train display area. It has an area for social services as part of the program that was mandated by council many months ago. The Wellness Center has a basketball court-size community room. It's got support functions such as kitchenettes. It's got 3 meeting rooms, which are good enough for 40 to 60 people. It's got washroom locker areas that will sustain the community room, which can act as a sports center as well. It's got an office for township staff as well. On the outside of the building, a splash pad has been designed. A design has been approved by the design committee from staff. It'll be presented tonight for your review. The playground equipment, same thing. A design has been presented by Ball Construction. We've worked it through, and it's been approved by the committee and for your review tonight. The skate park was a little more involved. There was a meeting held with the user groups, which included the youth and some adults. And the designer of the skate park has taken that information. He's now preparing a design that's custom based on that. We don't have that yet, but we will present with you a couple options tonight, and the final design will be pending in the next few weeks, we believe. The site plan is designed, again, around the terms of reference that we had in terms of parking, in terms of arrangement of the various features, a future band shell, the driveways in, bus parking, et cetera, all that will be presented through Matthew tonight. I'm pleased to say that the base building design is probably 99% nailed down from our point of view. It'll be presented tonight to you for your review and hopefully approval. It's all based on option B that was presented in the study that was done last year. It's been a fair bit of work by staff and by Ball Construction's team in coming to this level. There's a lot of nitty-gritty that has been refined over the last 4 months, and I think it's well on its way. In terms of schedule, I've gone through the tendering. We're pretty well on target for everything that we've mentioned last October. Site plan application went in earlier in July, 12th of July. The first application for site plan approval was in. First round of comments have come back already. It's using an iterative process, as Brent can attest to, for the site plan process. First round of comments have come back, and the design team is addressing those. Foundation permit application went in August the 2nd. This particular project, because of its relatively fast-track nature, the permit process will be multiple. In an ideal world, the entire design would be done and an entire permit application would be made at once. Because of the size of this project and the scale and the timing, it's been elected by the contractor and accepted by the building department to do a sequenced permit. So the first permit will be foundations, the second permit will be shell only, and the third permit will be everything else. What that does is allows the contractor to get going with this foundation work. And it's such a big building that there's not weeks of work, there's months of work in the foundation. So by the time the foundation is progressed, the shell permit will be in, submitted, and reviewed already. That being said, the foundation permit isn't just concrete. It's a fairly elaborate set of drawings, because obviously the building department needs to know what's being approved. So the drawings are fairly well advanced, just not detailed, super detailed above the foundation level. We expect that the shell-only permit will be submitted roughly mid-September, and the final full application will be mid-November. Contractor will mobilize. He has partially mobilized already. Some removals have been completed on site, some of the electrical poles, and some of the cleanup has been done. Over the next few weeks, you'll see some demolition of the various miscellaneous buildings that are on site and general clearing. So it's expected that the contractor will mobilize for real probably within a couple of weeks, and that'll allow servicing. It's going to be hinged a little bit on site plan approval, because we don't want to be constructing anything without final blessings of the various approving bodies. Groundbreaking ceremony, we've finally got a date of September 6th, so we're all looking for that. Hopefully there will be some activity on site shortly before that, but that'll be the official kickoff. A couple other areas. Good news to date, there have been no change orders written, so pluses or minuses, our contingency is still intact. There are a few things that are being discussed that are more or less give and take, and we're perceiving more or less a wash right now. So right now there's nothing to report financially other than we're on target. It is early still, but hopefully we can continue that line of thought. There's several sub-tenders that were mentioned in the allowances when I made the report in April. Material testing to retain a company through Ball Construction. These are all through Ball now because the allowances are now part of their contract. That award will be this week. It'll be the end of this week. Because of the schedule to get the library on board, we need to order furniture and things that can be here in time for the July opening of the library. Back on the schedule, we are still on target for the splash pad, the skate park, the playground, and the library for late June, early July next year, which is what the original target was. So we're working with Ball to try to keep those on target, and that way those 4 areas can be opened. There's some logistics on site that we need to work with because it's going to be an active construction site, but that's also being discussed right now. Other allowances will continue to progress probably towards the end of the year. The urgency isn't as much on those as it is on these 2 that I mentioned. One other item that is of interest is that we had an energy charrette, and a charrette is like a workshop. It was hosted by the energy companies, Enbridge and NPEI. Their mandate is to improve energy efficiencies of a building. So this charrette happened on July the 10th. It was hosted by those 2. They had quite a setup. It was a day for 25 people, roughly 30 people. Representatives from the 2 energy companies, from our team, from the municipality, from the contractor, their design team. The good news is that part of this charrette was to model the building in terms of energy, how much energy is used theoretically. And the original model, based on the design and the terms of reference that were developed, is very, very positive. We've got a very high standard building. The charrette's mandate is to try to improve energy efficiencies. Something such as increase the insulation in the building, or make the windows more energy efficient, or change the ductwork in the building. There's a number of things that are being tabled right now. I can't give you anything direct right now, but it is in the works. There have been a couple of things suggested that we're looking at the cost versus the payback, and that'll come back to council in a future report. So with that, what I'll do is I'll pass it over to Matthew. He'll take you through the graphics and show you the plans, and then unless there's any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hutima. And thank you, by the way, for all the time that you and your team have put into this. We know that it's a big project and a big rush, and so whether they're a member of the township who's been part of this team or whether they're part of your design team, thank you so much for the work you've done. Okay, and we're anxious to hear the rest, so thank you.
I'm not too sure. The PowerPoint.
They got it? It's going on. Oh.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Hank, for that summary at the beginning. That's going to kill about the first 2 slides that I have to go through. So I've got those things identified there as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on the design of the project, because we have
Welcome,
been
and we're
working.
happy to have an update. So.
We've been working diligently for the last several months with the team. There's Vanessa, Brent, and Hank, and Bob. So we've covered a lot of ground. And even though, if you were to look at where we are right now very quickly compared to our original submission, you probably wouldn't notice the differences all that much. But there, every wall and room has been adjusted in some way. So don't be deceived by that. There's been a lot of work put into it. And I won't go over the update that Hank gave, but the key thing here, and that's going to kind of temper what I show you today, is that the design and the more detailed working drawings have been going on in parallel, essentially. So because of the timeline, because we have to be in the ground in September and beat the cold weather, the two do have to run in parallel, and that means that some of the design is lagging, I would say, but it's the more finished type of work, and you'll see that in what I present to you today. The building program, I won't go through that in detail again. I think one of the key things to note that wasn't mentioned is that this, of course, is going to be a completely accessible building for everybody in the community, and completely AODA compliant throughout the facility. Be aware of that, and that has to do with the site as well as inside the building. The site plan, you've seen this one out in your lobby for quite a while now, and that's why I'm kind of mentioning about the parallel work that we're doing. Is we don't keep rendering the drawings every time that we're advancing the work, because that just takes a lot of time, and it's not going to provide us with anything in the end. So some of these more colorful drawings that I show you today are ones that are a little behind in terms of where we're at. But I wanted to touch on the site plan very quickly and how we got to this layout, because I think it's important that you know that background. It's a kind of a unique site, let's put it that way, with that narrow entry point into the site, and that, typically you'd want to have your new building, in terms of urban planning standards, you want to have it close to the street and give you a presence. We didn't have that opportunity here, but we wanted to make sure that as you're entering the site from the main street, that you do see it very clearly from the street. So that's why we positioned it as we did, right here on axis with the entry. The other part to this is that you do have to get into the site and get into your parking, and by having this curved road over to the main parking area, you're creating a bit of a travel or traffic calming effect, as well as leading people into the site so you can see the building and then make your way over to the parking. And there's parking for 300 cars. The other change that happened as a result of discussions with the team is we ended up consolidating the play areas at the back here. I don't want to call it the back of the building, but it's on the north side, and it's close to where the North Baseball Diamond is. And there were good reasons for that, and made a lot of sense to consolidate the skate park, the outdoor playground, and the splash pad in the same area. It's away from the parking, but close to it. It's kind of creates a precinct here at the back of the building that's close to where all the circulation is from the side streets as well. So in terms of how the buildings lay out, we came up with a very simple plan. I think in the RFP, it really wanted to have a building that was easy to circulate within, to find spaces. You can see everything that's going on. So when you enter into the building, we've got our main lobby that's going to have glass on basically all sides, so you can see into the arena, into the gymnasium, community room, and towards the library. So it's going to be very clear, very simple, very easy to operate. The latest site plan, you won't notice much in terms of the differences, but it's getting into a lot more detail now. We've made our site plan application. We've been dimensioning the site. We're going through all the civil details with our engineer, so that's making its way into the drawings. But over at the back here, we've gone into a lot more detail with the play area, which we'll start to look at in a minute. Also, as part of the set of drawings is the landscape plan. So again, these are not colorful and pretty to look at, but it's really, I'm representing the architectural side of things, but we have structural engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical, civil, landscape architects, the playground designers, the splash pad designers. We're all working together to unify the site and the work that's involved. So there's a whole team in behind us, and I'm just the spokesperson for everybody. So in that outdoor play area, Hank mentioned the skate park area. So there's going to be a custom skate park at this end of the site. This is the north end of the building where the arena is. Then we have the playground that's going to be in between it and the splash pad. So here you have these three elements together. There's going to be covered areas for people to sit under, on a hot day. But it's all linked and unified, and there are washrooms here at the north end of the building, so kids and others have access to washrooms nearby. Now, the two that are in color, those are the ones that have been presented and selected as the preferred options. The skate park will be coming in the next month. This is just one of the options that was presented to the team for the skate park. It shows them, one of the designs that they've done in the past and they can do for you, but I think as a result of their meeting with the public, they're going to come up with something that's special, that's unique to this particular site and what has been asked for. The other is the playground. There were three options, I believe, for the playgrounds that were presented. I'm not showing you all of them today, but this one was considered the preferred option, and I believe there's probably a package of drawings that can be provided to show you the different options there. And then there's the splash pad. And again, we went through 2 or 3 different options, and this was considered the preferred one. In terms of the building, I'll go through these fairly quickly. We have some colored plans that are a little older, and then we have some very detailed working drawings that are a bunch of lines and probably won't mean much to you. But then I have some 3D axonometric drawings that go along with them just to help kind of explain the planning. But again, main entrance into the building, a fairly large lobby for people to gather in and make their way to the various spaces. Very clear lines into the arena, and here would be a naming right possibility right at that entrance that Glenn was mentioning, as well. A glass wall here leading into the gymnasium, community room, another opportunity, and then going right head towards the library. So these are very clear lines of sight, and there would be opportunities for signage there to lead you into the building. On the second floor, on this particular level, you're seeing the roof of the library over here because that's only 1 story. This is all 2-story in here. This is you come up the main stair and elevator. Again, a fairly spacious gathering area at the top of the stairs for seating and gathering. We have 3 meeting rooms along this frontage. There's a glass wall right here and a glass wall on this side that looks down into this 2-story space that would be the gymnasium/community room. And then you just go through the doors here, and that leads to the upper level of the walking track that goes all the way around the rink, and the seating for 450 on that side of the rink as well. So, again, here's just a black and white light drawing. I won't spend time on it, but I wanted to mention that the drawings are well along. They're all detailed, dimensioned. They've been submitted to the buildings department for the foundation permit. There'll be even more detailed for the next package of drawings, and all of our engineers are similarly well along in that same level of completion. This is a three-dimensional view and probably shows up well on your handout, so it's easy to read. But again, it's just, I think, what you see in plan, a little easier to see in three dimensions. I don't have to spend too much time going through it, but you can see a little more about the glass walls that I was talking about that provides visibility into the various spaces within the building. So you come through the main entry right here. Of course, there's a vestibule for weather protection. There's opportunities on the sides here for donor walls and that kind of thing. They'll be open, and there'll be walls there that give you that option. The glass wall that leads into this community room, and the glass wall here to the arena. All along this side is your change rooms. There's essentially 6 change rooms, 2 ancillary change rooms, which are smaller but multi-use. All the servicing is at the back of the building right here. There's our storage rooms along this side. Here we have some offices. Could be a figure skating office, coaches' offices, that kind of thing. There's a concession at this location right here. There's some offices in this location for the staff offices. And then we have a bank of washrooms along here that can be easily accessed by the library and people in this area. Not so much important for the arena because it has the dressing rooms down here, and most of the people are on the second floor, where we also have washrooms there as well. And all of this block right here is the library that we've been going through very carefully with Vanessa in terms of where to place the offices and the circulation desk. So that planning is coming along very nicely. Now, in plan and in the renderings, we're showing some furniture that you see there. That's still early days. We're just putting in placeholders there right now. We still have to go through an exercise of picking furniture and selecting colors and finishes, so that's still to come. But right now, we've got the basics in place. Second floor level, again, you come up there's a circulation stair that wraps around the elevator. There's a spacious area to gather. There's the offices, or the meeting rooms along here, and you'll be able to see the glass wall that allows you to look down into this space. There's a acoustic divider that can separate the space so that you've got an opportunity to break it into smaller rooms, if so desired, or just open it up so that it's all one space. What you don't see in this particular rendering, but we had some other angles, is that there's seating along here. There's bleacher seating for 200 along that side. And then what you see in yellow, that's not necessarily the color, is the walking track that goes all the way around the rink and in behind the seating that's on this one side of the arena. Again, drawing with a bunch of lines, but I won't go into detail there, but if you want to look at it in more detail on your handout, that's great. More emphasis on this particular axonometric for the library. I think it's pretty well self-explanatory in terms of what you see there. I think the key thing is that you need to appreciate it. It's basically a glass wall all the way around on 3 sides of this library. Lots of light coming into it. It'll be controlled light. Offices have windows. Meeting rooms have windows unless they're on this side where it's not as necessary. And there'll be a seating area all along this frontage, so as you're approaching the building, there'll be this connection to the library. In the evening, you can see it just glowing and be receptive to people approaching the buildings. You're not approaching a blank wall. It's going to really, connect people to what's happening inside. This is focused on the wellness center area. We've gone through the basic details, but over here on this bank, there's some change rooms that allow people to change and go into directly into that space if there's some kind of sports going on. Obviously, it's multi-use, and there can be all kinds of activities, but we do have change room facilities right next door to it. So there's a quick connection there. There's a kitchenette. and some storage rooms located here and behind these offices. So it has all the amenities that were asked for in the RFP, and I think they're nicely located in a way that really makes a great functional multi-use space for you. This is the second floor level. Again, I've zeroed in on it a little more closely. It just shows you that welcoming area, the rooms. These rooms have divider walls as well. So you can see these squiggly lines right here. They represent a folding partition. They can divide that into 3 rooms or just make that one big room that can be used any way that, and for any number of people that you want to put in there. Another drawing with a lot of lines. In the arena at the lower level, these change rooms, there's 2 accessible change rooms in the middle, and they're purposely accessible change rooms and sized accordingly, so they're a little bit bigger. There's 4 other dressing rooms, 2 on either side, right here, and then 2 smaller change facilities. So we've got all the change facilities here on the one side of the building. And on the north end, you've got the washrooms I talked about that have access out to the playground area. We have a workshop, mechanical rooms, electrical rooms, a Zamboni room, the ice plant room right here, and then these are all storage rooms that have been subdivided for different users. And then there's some offices over here that have windows that look onto the rink. At the second floor level, this just, again, focuses in on the walking track that goes all the way around the rink. It'll have a glass guard all around the perimeter. And there's accessible seating platform areas there, so that's all a glass guard that you can see through and not have obstructed sight lines. What I'd like to do is probably the most self-explanatory one is there's a quick fly-through that we've done of the facility, and I temper the expectations because this is done from the Revit model that we're working on, and really that's as we're developing the design of this building, we're doing it in 3-dimension, and it's a work in progress. So as our drawings get finished and completed, the model gets more finished as well. I guess the best example would be if you were buying a house and you're going to visit the subdivision where it's being built and you were walking into it. It still doesn't have the finishes on the floor and on the walls, and the paint colors haven't been selected, so it shows you the volume and the spaces, and the level of detail will come later on. And if the music is on, I apologize for that because it's a younger group that did it and they have different tastes than I do. Meeting rooms along here. The bleacher seating is along this wall, and then there's glass up above that brings light into that space. Back the arena is along the back of the arena. We're still picking colors and patterns and things like that, but that's still to come. This is the most.
What's that box on the corner? Missed it.
That's the back of house area where the access is for the Zamboni and the workshop. So it still doesn't have the colors on it yet. It still doesn't have the materials that we've been selecting. The ceiling won't look like that, but it's something that we have in our drawings right now. Still to be worked on. So now you're in the lobby, and then you'll be looking back towards the gymnasium community room. See the seating at the far end. think our guys spent time with tonight. You can see up here, these are the windows from those meeting rooms that look down onto the space. This is heading down towards the library. There'll be a green wall inside the library. That's kind of what that mass looks like on the side. Some meeting rooms. I get dizzy watching this.
The swirls.
I'm getting a headache.
So we're still working out a lot of the details with Vanessa on this, where to put the fireplace and the details of the circulation counter, but it's coming. That wouldn't be the type of chairs, but Vanessa from there's going to be capacity. See the glass guard goes all the way around the track. Almost there. Got to go upstairs yet. So now you're at the second floor level here. You're going around the track. Voila.
Okay, well, thank you for that very much. I know that you even probably felt that was a little long, but
Yeah.
but it is much easier for many of us to just sort of
Yeah, I
gain
find
some
that-
an understanding of what it will look like from that as opposed to floor plans. So, but we don't want to see it twice.
No.
Stop.
Just
Hate that
say.
song.
I haven't,
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Chichok.
thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this isn't to you, but I guess we're at a place where we're asking questions, and that is change orders. How is that going to work? Substantial change orders, will they be coming back to council? Because if we're going to go off budget, substantial, that would mean we should get it back before we go there. But getting updates on a monthly basis about where we stand with change orders, is that in the plan?
I know, we talked
Through
about that the
you
other
two.
day, and Hank has a plan.
Hank has a plan.
We have a contingency that was part of the project that was approved. Anything that's significant, obviously, would come back through the committee, through council. I think it would have to, if anything small would be dealt with within the contingency, but anything that's of significant nature, and we can define significant as it happens, but that would obviously have to come back here first.
At the appropriate time, I'd like to make sure that we have
Before
a
it's,
motion, we have a motion on the floor that would say that we'd have monthly updates on the status of the contingency funds and change orders that have been issued, and that substantial needs to be defined. And I'd put that on the floor later tonight when we're considering what's going in there. But substantial, I need it to be defined rather than, if it's bigger than what's in the contingency, whoa, that's substantial. Because that means news to the community. So this design build was based on us accepting everything in the design build and coming in with a project on cost. If it isn't, I think that council needs to be made aware of as the contingency shrinks, and anything that's over what's in there definitely has to come back, just so that there's no surprises, like the Holiday Inn. So that's not to be punitive, that's just to be all of us on the same page.
Correct.
And the second question I have, Madam Chair, is the cost and payback, additional features where you're going to the utilities, where they're going to say, we'll put those lights in, and over 7 years, you'll save this much money. I hope that's not getting rolled into the project as a saving to allow us to spend more.
Well, I mentioned that because it is something that is on the table that we're discussing with the companies. Some of the enhancements were cost neutral, some of them were cost savings, and some were cost extra. So we're still reviewing them. It's too early to say which ones we're going to recommend, if any.
We've made the magic word. You're going to recommend them before they're done.
Absolutely.
So if we're going to put in expensive lights because they got a 7-year payback, there's going to be a funding issue that we're going to have to talk about. And that's all I want to know, is that the funding issues are all coming back to council so that we're being transparent about the fact the cost increases. When people see it going over the number we approved, they're not going to be saying, see, we told you.
The good news is that the program that was developed and the design that Matthew and Ball have come up with is deemed by the Energy Charrette as very good. There's ways of always making it better, but I'm pleased to say that we've got a great design right now in terms of energy, but that being said, it could always get better.
Those are my questions.
Anyone else with questions? Councillor Bell?
Through Madam Chair. Could you define what a change order is and how it occurs?
A change order is a legal document that changes the value of the contract. Now, we have a contingency on this project, which is
Small.
undesignated. It's at $750,000. We also have cash allowances. Cash allowances are, I'll start with that. Cash allowances are items that need to be purchased, but at the time of us writing the documents and at the time of them tendering it, there's no way that we could do that much detail. For instance, I mentioned material testing. We're going to hire a company to do concrete testing and to do compaction testing and to test the roof and to test the structural steel. There's money set aside in the contract for that. That tender will be through Ball Construction, and that'll come out of that allowance. So that's something we couldn't do at the time because we didn't have a design to base it on. The general contingency is for unforeseens. Let's say, for instance, we want to enhance the windows to make the energy better. It's going to cost X number of dollars. It's an extra to the contract, but it'll be within the contingency. And the change order basically gives a contract change to the contractor. It's an agreement between the township and the contractor that authorizes the material value of that change and gives them direction to go ahead. And I hope to keep on saying on a regular basis that we're within the contingency. That's what it's there for, is to deal with these things. For instance, if the township or a committee or staff want something that wasn't in the documents, that's an extra. Or if we delete something, there's a credit. So the change order is basically a legal document that changes the value of the contract. At the beginning, it goes through the contingency and adjusts the value of the contingency. It starts off at $750. If we have a credit, it goes up. If we have an extra, it goes down. And part of my job is to manage that, and I report regularly to staff. Right now, it's easy to report at zero. But as we get into construction, I do track all these things. I track the value of all the contingencies, all the cash allowances, and I report on a regular basis, mostly through Brent and our other committees. So, but a change order is a legal document that changes the value of the contract between the contractor and the municipality.
So when this went out, it went out at a defined price of 23.6 million. That's what we set aside. And so we don't go over budget. I think that's where Councilor Chichek was going, is to keep everything within that window. So the order that would put us over is something that we have requested that we improve. For example, your windows, library furniture, if they want to upgrade from what was set aside, that would be a change order that would put us over budget, and that would be our decision to make.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, it's also unforeseen if we find a swamp
Yeah.
in the middle of the site that we had absolutely no idea was there.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with it. So it's an unforeseen. We hope we don't get too many of those, but I would expect some. It's pretty typical in a project to find something in the ground that you just didn't expect. But those are things, it's either changes, pluses or minuses by the client, or things that are unforeseen.
Thank you.
Nothing further? Councilor Duffman? No? Anyone else? Councilor Chichak
One
again,
last,
please?
yes, one last question. It was, you advised that the public had looked at the playground and the skate park, and the water splash pad. So my question is, and I'm going to focus on dollars, and Councilor Bell has got me pegged right. I'm going to be wanting to know, I just want to make sure that we are getting to know and approve all of the additions. I'm not saying we're not going to do it, but we need to see all the items that are going to hit the contingency. That means that they're small, you'll tell us about what you did. Took 3 screws instead of 2. I just want to know that it went. But if it's substantial, where we need to define substantial, we also need to understand that you are going to argon gas instead of just single pane glass or something like that, and that's $185,000. That's more than 20% of the contingency gone. So I also wanted to know who looked at those from the public, because that goes to my funding again. And did we have a specific budget? And when we showed it to the public, whoever that is, was the project within the budget that we allotted for each of those items? So who's the public that have looked at it and suggested with options, and then are they within a budget that within a design build we'd allot it for those specific attributes to this project?
For you, Acting Mayor, if I understand the question correctly, the different aspects of the building, which could be the library, the arena, could be the
No,
classroom.
sorry, I'm
So three-
specifically at the 3 at this moment that are undefined at this point that Matthew's suggesting. He's saying we've gone out to the public and we looked at the skateboard park and we're going to get something specific, because if I remember what you said, the playground and the splash pad are yet to come forward. So all I'm looking for is, when we put it out at 23.6, how much do we allow for each of those out?
If I can answer that, the budget won't change because the construction value is set, the contract is set.
Okay,
The performance of everything, including those 3, is well-defined in the terms of reference. For instance, in the splash pad, we wanted X number of features of A, B, and C. In the skate park, we want X number of features of A, B, and C. We have a certain area with a certain
Okay.
material. That's all specified.
Great.
My role with working with the committee is to make sure that the contractor in their presentation, and Matthew can attest to this, they meet it. And they have been. We've been working with them diligently over the past 4 months to make sure that everything in the book has been met within the guidelines, and the budget hasn't changed. So I expect that the skate park will follow protocol. The splash pad and the playground that were presented, they have several options, as Matthew mentioned, were presented, the ones that were selected, and we're showing to you tonight, met the criteria that were put forth in the terms of reference. And aggregately, the budget hasn't changed because the tender value hasn't changed. So the skate park, I expect it to be the same thing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was just the skate park that we went out to the public to get their input, but the playground and the splash pad were more internal in terms of, here's 3 options, within the team, which one do you think would be the preferred option? So those two haven't gone out to public, but the skate park had that conversation with.
With?
Yeah, Brent's going to jump
Okay,
in.
Mr. Julian, I think can answer your question,
I'm
Councillor
happy to.
Chichok. He's been
Thank you.
Hopping up and
showing
down.
that he wants to take part in this
Through
discussion.
you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Chichuk and Council. Yes, what Matthew Deline has said is correct. We went out to youth groups that were particular for the skate park, and that was really just to get their input on the design. It does not change the cost of the contract. The contractor is required by that RFP proposal to deliver. It was strictly for design criteria, and if I can give you an example as something that stuck to me, one young fellow, it was, don't forget about the BMX bikes, right? And there was a certain railing that had to be a certain height, and that was the kind of input that the skateboard architect was taking into consideration. Is nothing that would change the budget on that. And so the youth groups were defined, we canvassed out to all the schools, to the Fort group, that kind of thing. Put invitations out. We had a good response. It was very productive. So
Was the music enticing? No.
no, there
so-
was no music.
So I guess where I'm getting at is, these are all taped, and these kids, I just want to make sure, if we are going out to the public, I don't want someone calling up and saying, they never asked, who did they ask? And so I'm just careful of what it is you're saying. And secondly, aggregately, if we've got various elements and we're planning to put those in, but they'll all fall within the budget because you can design them, that's really what I'm trying to tease out of you this evening. So thank you very much, Madam Acting Mayor, for that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell, you want to speak again?
Just want to talk about what you just said about the splash pad, playground, and the skateboard park. If council recalls, it was put out by the mayor that he was going to invite the youth groups and anyone that was interested to come out to a meeting he was going to have with the public, and the public being the youth groups and the other. To get ideas, he invited the designer of the skateboard park, along with Ball Construction was there, and a few other people were there. And the ideas thrown around by the kids, the designer said he would incorporate them. He likes to build one-of-a-kind skateboard park. At the end of the day, he's got X number of dollars to work with, and he's aware of that. Same as splash park and stuff. There was no input from the public there, that was just part of the design. And, the only thing that went out there was the skate park, and there was some great ideas. And it was open to council and anybody else.
Good. Okay, thank you for that further clarification. Anyone else with another question before we move on? Okay, seeing none, thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight and showing us your presentation and answering questions. Okay, moving on. We're still on appointments and presentations, and we have Joanna and Andy Draystra from West Street, I think, who would like to make a presentation tonight. Okay, welcome. Joanna, are you speaking, I understand? Or are you both speaking?
She's speaking mostly.
That's how it goes sometimes, right? Okay, go ahead, we're listening.
Well, if I may approach council about something that it is, we live at 270 West Street. We have undergone a project that we lifted up the home and we put new basement underneath. It belonged to the Diamonds. The Diamonds, it's one of the oldest homes in Smithville, and the home has quite a significant history. We are down now. We've come to the front wall. The stones had to come off. First, the home was going to be lifted up with the stones, but then in the process, the stones had to come off. We'd like to put them back on, and we're asking for a gift from township in rebuilding that front wall, putting the stones back on.
More as a historical background as far as this town goes, because it is actually the oldest house in town. It's not maybe, but it is actually the oldest. And we've gone to the,
Yeah, I've gone to township about 3-4 years ago when Raquel, do I say her name right? I met with her, and back then it went to Fulton Church on Highway 20, so there was none left. And then this past fall, I talked to Garrett Burama, and he said there was still not really anything, whether it was locally or what's the next level, provincially. So I talked to Garrett again about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and he says it was pretty well the same. He did show me the rules whereby if you want a home designated, but we don't necessarily want it designated. We would just like to, everything else in Smithville is really being made beautiful, and 270 West Street would be a nice part of it.
Anyone on council have a question? Councilor Bell?
So just so I understand, the stone is off the front of the building now,
yeah, we had to take it out.
and you want to put it back on, the stone that
We
was,
intend to put it back on. We want to keep the house as original. I mean, it was built in the 1800s.
so then you're asking for township to assist you with the cost of putting the stone back on? 'Cause
Yeah.
okay, and what kind of cost are you looking at? What would you be asking for in dollars?
Well, the total amount would be around, to put the stone back on, we got a verbal, we didn't get a written one yet, but they told us it's about 6,000 to 6,500.
So 6,000 to 7,000?
Yeah,
6,700.
Yeah.
Yeah,
6,000 to 7,000.
Oh, yeah.
And how much of that would you be looking for from the township?
50% would be nice.
Okay. That's good, thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
as far as it goes, we've always thought our house as being the oldest house in Smithville. It's got a lot of history to it. I mean, even this book here shows it, you know, it's got a lot of history to the house itself. And the thing is too, like, we've gone to the historical people, and
Mr. Carter.
their biggest words are they're always out of money. So we thought, well, if the township had any interest in our house, and we'd like to keep it to the point where it has history to it, it'd be interesting if the township was willing to donate or
Okay.
if there's anything in there for that. Something we thought we'd bring up.
That's good, I'm good, yeah, that's good for now, yeah, thank you.
Councilor Bilsma, did you want to speak? And then Councilor Chichok, if that's okay.
I don't know exactly where to direct my question, but my question is this: have we ever done anything like this before in the municipality? Just as
That
like
probably
a
needs to go to our acting CAO, who is
okay.
most able to answer that, I would think.
Through to members of council, and perhaps that Mr. Treble can step in if he has additional information. We do not have a program where we give money to do repairs on heritage homes that are designated. There are some communities, I understand, that do, but we never have had that I'm aware of.
Mr. Treble, anything further that you can add to that?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, there's limited ability that council has to provide money to individuals. There are two programs, though, but the one is for heritage designated structures, which this is not. So I would suggest if you want to follow any of the rules under the Heritage Act, designation of the structure, like was done with the Fulton Church, would be the first step. The other option that we have available, and there's a report on the agenda, is our community improvement plans. However, the boundaries of the community improvement plan as it's presently structured is from the railway at Station Street southerly to the intersection just out here and follows Station Street and Griffin Street and Canberra Street, doesn't tend to veer off onto St. Catherine Street or West Street. You can certainly provide financial assistance through the CIP program, but you have to be inside that designated area. So there's a couple of examples, but unfortunately this particular residential location doesn't fit well within the CIP that's available right now either. So I'm kind of at a loss. I can certainly do more research to see if there's anything else out there. But the Heritage Program might be the better option if the designation was to proceed.
Thank you. And Councilor Chichok, you had a question?
I did, and thank you. The questions related to the heritage designation, and I heard you say that you were not wanting to be historically designated, and your reasoning for going there is it the limitations that then, because when you're historically designated, now you have to maintain the property in its exact form as it was?
Yeah, it's a little bit to do with that, yeah.
Okay.
More so on that line. We're not 110% sure of how that exactly works, but we've heard horror stories of it.
Well, I'd really like, Madam Acting Mayor, through you to staff, that would be a way that I would like to understand if our staff are going to do more research, because it's the integrity of the home and the the act, as well as our own historical society, would virtually demand, and council would be remiss if we didn't want to take it back to the integrity of what it was when it was built. And that obligation is oftentimes prohibitive in why people don't want historical designations. So for the sake of $6,500, you may not want to have that imposition on your property. But if you did, it would be under that kind of guise that you'd be researching historical designation, that we'd even think about, that I could even consider supporting any kind of funding, if there were any to be had. But as Mr. Krebel has pointed out, you don't fall within. I was looking at the report while you're speaking that's on our agenda, and you're not in the community improvement area either. So if we were using taxpayers' money to support you, it would be because we were trying to bring back a historical type of component to the community, and that would be something we'd have to offer throughout the community. And I think the first step that I could support would be designation, and then integrity to the designation.
Yeah, but even as far as it goes, the Historical Society, we talked to them. Never really got into major discussions with them, because every time you talk to them, they never have any money anyway. So basically, you go to somebody and you ask them, for historical money. If they don't have any, there's no use continuing on with the conversation.
But if you're coming to us, the first thing we'd want is you to get historically designated before we did any consideration. And that's something you have to consider as Mr. Treble does more research, is my point. So I think you've got some homework to do before this could come back to council.
Councilor Bilsman.
I think then to that end, at this point, I think we just, I recommend that we just refer this to staff.
Receive and refer.
Receive it and refer to the staff, so we can do that relevant reporting and then get that information and come back with a recommendation from them. So that'd be my desire at this time, to receive your request and refer to staff, and just get a little bit more background so we can make we don't want to, I'm also a little bit afraid, and there's not a plethora of historical homes, but I don't want to also open up a kettle of fish that if we haven't already started the precedent, there's something that I'm sure you're not the first request across 40 years for something like this, and just want to make sure that we proceed in a way that that's sustainable, that's responsible to the taxpayers as a whole, and then also to the significance of your property. So.
Before you do that, Councilor
Yeah.
Bell, I think wanted to say something else. Could we do that first, please? And then,
Yeah.
then I'll call on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Bell?
I guess I hear where Councilor Bilsman's going, and I hear Councilor Chichek, and not being fully up on the historical society, but what I do know about them here in other communities is that Councilor Chichek's right. You either have to designate your home as wanting to be part of heritage or not, because in order for us to move forward to say that we could help you out, we need that designation. So, saying that we want to refer this back to staff to come back, what are they going to come back with if we don't know that this home has been designated to go down that road? So I think that for now, it's just we'll receive it for information, and we have to wait for this couple to come back and say, yeah, this is the route they're going to go, and they want to proceed forward with it, or no, they just want to they don't want to designate their home.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree
So-
somewhat, but I think that Mr. Treble has offered perhaps to help these folks find a way to look at designation. It sounds to me like you've heard horror stories and you've heard people talking about it, but whether you've actually examined that or not, I don't know. But that is the one thing that we can perhaps offer a little help with, and that is, having staff take a look at this and examine whether there is any possible way. At least that's someone outside of themselves taking a few minutes. I'm not expecting them to spend a great deal of time. I'm sure that there are resources that they could provide you with that would enable, some support that way.
That would be staff giving the name and phone numbers of the individuals.
Well, maybe it turns out to be as simple as that, but if the recommendation is for it to go back to staff, then maybe that's all that's provided. Is that possible, Mr. Treble? I don't want to take, additional time, nor do I expect you to do the homework, for this couple, but if there's a way to just provide the information that they would need to look into it.
There's, through you, Madam Acting Mayor, there's certainly things that we can investigate through the Ministry of, I think it's Culture these days, that is responsible for the Heritage Act and legislation. We can look there to see what programs are available through the province and through the process exactly what. I haven't been involved in designations for a while, so exactly what is involved in the designation process even would be helpful, I'm sure, for the individuals involved. I know it used to be that you could designate certain key features of the building and not the whole of the building, depending on what is seen as being historic or significant in that property. So I think some investigating around that might very well be valuable too. If that brick turns out to be, a very important piece of the puzzle, it might be worth seeing if there is something there. So I'm happy to assist and do what research we can, and between Garrett and I will report back to the Draystras and let them know what's available.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then, Councillor Billsma, you have a resolution.
Yeah, so the clerk is kind of on the ball here, so I guess we move that request from Joanna Dreistra for funding to restore her heritage home be received and referred to staff. Very simply.
So that's a starting point.
Well,
Hopefully.
what you mentioned, that's what other people have said too. You don't have to designate your home, but if that stone gives a significant resemblance of where it came from, how long it has been on here, and how such a beauty it gives, then you could put a plaque. Is that the right word? You could put a plaque on that stone and say, donated partly by township. That's what
Madam Acting Mayor, I don't want to mislead anyone. I think this opens a whole different thing that we've talked about at different times. If we are going to look at historical features, which we probably should do, it's the whole focus of the Historical Society, but also ourselves, in looking at beyond the facade improvements. We might give you a plaque if it's a historic building and it's rendered to be the same shape as it was. For instance, house, Dr. Murgatroyd, and a few of the other houses that have in fact managed to keep the state of the house to what it was when it was built. But if we are going to get into historic buildings to try and preserve them, or preserve facades or key elements, I think we need to do some work. It would be the Historical Society or this council with the Historical Society talking about how we would find funds to invest in preservation, much like the train station or any of the churches that are spending money to maintain their state of repair and maintaining what the building looked like. So that's a different issue. Putting a plaque on your historic building is another thing the Historic Society could go through and see what old buildings are around. That doesn't necessarily mean that we would be contributing. And I think what Mr. Treble is saying is he would help access funding that's available both from the province through historical funding and to see what I would hope he would bring forward some thoughts about what we might want to do in the future for buildings like yours. But that isn't an easy way strictly to funding. That would be establishing standards and key buildings that we would want to preserve. So whether it's the train station, the old mill, your house or the doctor's house, or I'm trying to think of other things, the different churches, the older churches, would we want to preserve the facade? The Murgatroyd building, et cetera, fell down. But those kind of things. So it's not an easy row to hoe, but
Well, we wanted to bring it up as a thought and as a request and go from there.
Okay, so members of council have heard the resolution. Some further discussion. Repeat that the request from Joanna Draster for funding to restore her heritage home be received and referred to staff. So all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay.
And would that be meant for the stone wall more so then?
Well, that's what they're going to look into, to see what there is.
Even if it's farther than, whatever. Interesting, it's nice to know that you're actually, interesting.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to confirmation of minutes. We're on 7A in case somebody's lost track along the way. The council minutes of the regular council meeting, July 24th, 2017, confidential minutes under the resolution, Councillor Chichok. I think you have that.
Thank you. Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma, that the minutes of the open session portion of the July 24th regular council meeting be accepted, that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of July 24th, 2017 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Okay, councillors, you've heard the resolution. All in favor? Oh, we're not doing that.
I know she didn't ask me.
I did not. Did you want to make a question or a comment, Councillor Rayner? I just thought, I looked at the time and thought, minutes, go. Sorry. In any case, were there any opposed? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, my.
We can do that,
We voted.
really.
When this come up, talking to Council Chichak, when she went to the wind turbine municipality turbine meeting, you were gonna ask, because I mentioned the grassy, people have been talking to residents in that area, and you were gonna mention it at the meeting, if anyone has heard of new leases or agreements being signed in the area. I'm just wondering if you have any information on that.
I through you, Madam Acting Mayor, I asked offhandedly to members of the not multi-municipal wind turbine group, but that was for local people who had heard. And in a couple of conversations, which are not formal because our next PAC meeting is not until the 29th, I believe, no one has actually evidence of contracts being signed. But I expected, because the multi-municipal wind turbine group is across Ontario, and I didn't think that was the nature of what we were looking for. So I intend to ask at our next local PAC meeting.
Sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought you were asking. Okay, no, that's good.
Okay.
Okay?
So we're ready to
Sorry.
move on then? Okay, item B, council minutes of a special council meeting on July 31st, 2017, and Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Moved by myself and second by Councillor Chichok that the minutes of July 31st, 2017 special council meeting be accepted.
Are there any questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, I'll move it for the vote. All in favor? Okay. Motion is carried. And thirdly, the public meeting under the Planning Act on July 24th, 2017 minutes. And Councillor Bell, I think you have that resolution.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma, that the minutes of the public meeting held on July 24th, 2017 under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw amendment, COKO file number 1601-009-17 be accepted.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Okay, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, and that motion carries. Okay, so we're on to communications, and item A is Ron Holman, Chair of Roma, a motion for proposed asset management planning regulation. And Councillor Billsma, you have that motion.
I do, and it's wordy, so bear with me.
You gotta read it.
I'm glad my wife just brought me a coffee, so that's.
I saw that page. It is very wordy.
Whereas municipalities, so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell. Whereas municipalities are a responsible, mature order of government in Ontario, and whereas the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln promotes, supports, and encourages strong and effective rural and northern rural governments, and whereas the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln supports the responsible and fiscally accountable development of the municipal asset management plans, and whereas the province of Ontario, through the Ministry of Economic Development, Employment and Infrastructure, has developed a proposed municipal asset management planning regulation, and whereas the proposed municipal asset management planning regulation has been posted on the environmental registry as 13-0551, and whereas the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln has reviewed the proposed municipal asset management planning regulation, and whereas the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln has reviewed the submission on the proposed municipal asset management planning regulation submitted by the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln agrees that the proposed municipal asset management planning regulation is 1, overly prescriptive, 2, does not reflect the principle that municipalities are responsible, mature governments, 3, incrementally increases engineering costs for municipalities at a time when the demand for engineering firms and expertise may exceed the availability, and 4, will create a resource and fiscal strain on our municipality and others, more specific in rural communities that have a limited staffing capacity, being the most vulnerable and sensitive to an increasingly burdensome regulatory environment. And further, be it resolved that copies of this motion be sent to the Minister of Infrastructure, AMO, and our local MP, Sam Osterhoff.
Thank you, Councillor Billsman. Okay. Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? If so, they're going to Ms. DeFilippis, I think, for answering. So, Councillor Rayner.
Yes. Just one question. What set this thing all off?
That was mine.
This came, like, Councillor Billsman normally doesn't like reading long dissertations. He usually just shortens them up to the first, second, and third reading, bang, done. But in this particular case, this was a long and winding road. It sounds like a Beatle record. But anyways, what initiated this, and why are we taking this stand?
Okay, I think our Director of Finance might be able to perhaps give some insight into that.
Thank you, through Acting Mayor Ganon. Our township has an asset management plan. It was passed by this council in 2013. At that time, we included roads, bridges, water, and wastewater assets. Now, currently, we are in the process of updating that asset management plan. It will be presented to council in 2017. Now we've added facilities, we've added equipment, we've added rolling stock, which is our vehicles, and landscaping. To say that an asset management plan is a lot of work is an understatement. It involves two aspects. It involves an engineering aspect and an accounting aspect. And our municipality does the best job they can. You'll remember that after the first asset management plan, we recommended that a road needs study be undertaken, and council approved it because the problem we're finding is we don't have a lot of assessment information. So we know perhaps how old something is, but we don't really know what state it's in. We also do 10-year capital plans, and we also keep track of all our assets in a software. This proposed regulation that the province has come up with is putting more rules on how we do these asset management plans. One significant one is that they would have to be signed off by an engineer, a professional engineer. And one of the problems is that that'll be an extra cost. Will the engineer be happy signing off on maybe an assessment that someone else did? And how can an engineer judge a financial plan? So these are some issues that we're questioning with this new regulation. Excuse me. When I read it, my first thought is that we would have to hire another accountant and another engineer. So it is very prescriptive and onerous for townships. I've been to many, many workshops on asset management plans. The city of Hamilton has done a lot of work in this area, and they have a staff of 40. And they still aren't on top of it, and it's taken them about 20 years. So I think we're doing the best we can. We are accountable. We do our asset management plan. They're necessary to obtain gas tax funding, so we're doing it. But to do it at this level is very onerous. So that's why when we got this recommendation, we spoke to the clerk, and we thought, you know, let's stand on this and stand behind Roma, the MFOA, which is the Municipal Finance Organization. They've also had similar comments. So it's not something that's just unique with Roma. So there's just a little bit of concern about how detailed it is, and also they're not coming up with any funding to help us. So I think that's another big aspect of it. The OSIF money that we get, which is the Ontario Infrastructure Fund, you can use it for asset management plans. However, we've been using it for capital because we know already what needs to be fixed. Do you allocate that all just to do a plan to meet some regulation? So that's why we brought this forward tonight.
Good solid explanation, thank you. Councillor Rayner, does that answer your question, and do you have any others?
I guess the only other question I would ask then is, if this is so onerous and this is so costly, and we pay the people at Queen's Park a lot of money to do the right thing, why are they shoving this down everybody's throat unless they have a reason for it? Knowing that the onus would be on the cost to the municipalities and the amount of extra time and effort, there has to be a reason why they insist on doing this and at the same time expecting you to pay it. Does anybody have an answer for that? Or are they just making these things up to justify their jobs before the next election? I don't know. Like, it doesn't, for what the Director of Finance is saying, this is a pretty asinine thing that they're doing, and it doesn't make any sense. We're objecting to it. But obviously somebody over there thinks it makes a lot of sense, so can somebody explain it from the other side why they're doing this? I understand now why we don't want to do it, but why do they want to do it?
Anything further to add?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ganon. I was surprised when I read this regulation because last year they had road shows for asset management plans, and actually myself and the Director of Public Works attended one in Brampton. And it was made very clear at that point that small municipalities would struggle with these ideas. So they were taking input from municipalities, and I was quite surprised when I read this because a lot of this never came up in the discussion. There's a whole topic on here on service levels. We're not even there yet as a municipality. Like, that in itself is a huge task to say, what service levels do we want from our assets? But it's a big, huge job. I think our approach in that we're already ahead of a lot of small municipalities in that we've done our roads needs study. You know, we do what we can. So I was quite surprised. I knew they were looking at asset management plans based on last year's activity. But I don't know where a lot of this detail came from.
Thank you. Councillor Rayner again?
There are, I believe, because I remember because it's a cubic inch of an engine, 454 municipalities in the province of Ontario. And through, I believe that's right.
Give or take.
If we're one of many
small communities. And I know, for example, because I've driven to Montreal a few times in the last year, and it's amazing the number of little townships you drive by as you're going there. It's almost like welcome to it, and within 3 or 4 minutes they're saying,
through.
well, here's the next one.
Exactly.
I know AMO's got into a lot of hot water lately because of some asinine thing about a 1% increase in HST, which was absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, but for some reason they put that forward. Has other municipalities, or is this municipality, because we've done it in the past with other things, asking other municipalities to support us in this quest to have something brought to the attention of the province? This is a perfect example where we need a whole bunch of other municipalities to come together to have AMO represent us to say, look, the little guys don't want this, and there's 300 of us. Is there something to be done with that regards?
Who is that, you as acting CAO?
It's through you, members
Ms.
of
Mouse will
council.
be able
I'm
to do
trying to
that.
remember who circulated this to us. It came via email.
This says Roma.
Roma. So just like AMO, they circulate, and they circulate to all municipalities. So I think the request for this similar motion has gone to all other municipalities.
May I,
Go ahead.
through you, then have we received, we must have, surely to goodness, if this has got the reaction that we've got from our people here, our staff, surely to goodness, there must be copies of this from other municipalities that have come through AMO that we would have received to say that there's some objection and some very serious questioning about this proposal in the future, and we suggest we get together. Have we heard anything from any other municipalities in the province of Ontario?
Through you, I have seen this request only. I believe that they suggested that they not necessarily copy all municipalities in Ontario, but there was a list at the bottom of that motion. So that I think they've requested each one to copy them, but they haven't copied all of us.
So, through you, Madam Acting Mayor, should we not therefore make this, if we're going to approve this tonight, that we also send copies to all other municipalities in the province of Ontario requesting their support to try to do something like this? This is what AMO is supposed to be for, is everybody to get together in order for the province to understand sometimes what we need and what we don't need, because on their own, sometimes they can't see the forest for the trees, which appears this is a perfect example.
Let's go with Councillor Chichok, who had her hand up, and then I'll come to your side.
I think, through you, Councillor Rayner is making a very good point. There's 454 or 464 municipalities. Probably 80% of those are small. And Roma is the one, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, is a derivative of AMO, as you'll see in the Roma Speaks. So AMO is all municipalities, Roma is specific to rural. I think comment, which is to send it to all municipalities, big, small, short, and robust, and anything would be a very useful tool, because a very useful thing, because this is Roma saying that in small municipalities, if you've got 5 staff, you're going to have 7 of them dedicated to this kind of additional work. And so I think that Councillor Rayner's point to send this to all municipalities, not just Roma issues, but to all AMO municipalities, would be a great add to the bottom of this. And then my question was, we put in a maintenance management system that was partially funded by the province, if I remember correctly, from years gone by, from the Director of Finance. But in what they're looking for, our plan to look at maintenance management and asset management, how much are we missing in the plan that we have put together, our own plan, compared to what it is that they're looking for? Other than the regulations to do it their way, and that's.
Through you, Acting Mayor Ganon. We know that a lot of our assets, we do not have assessment information. Currently, as I mentioned, we're working on updating in 2017. And for example, facilities, we don't really know what their value is, when they should be fixed, when they should be fixed. We go by age. And a key component of asset management is, when do you fix that asset? So, there's a point to say, if you fix an asset sooner, it'll cost you less. If you let it go too long, it's going to cost you more. Well, that's a lot of math, scientific work. Like, it's not something that we can just do on the side when we have some spare time. It's valuable, but it takes a lot of resources from staff. We are improving it in that we're adding all our assets. So we've already met that one criteria that is in here. I'm surprised it's in here because for gas tax funding, you need to do it anyway. The one thing we don't have is we don't have a professional engineer stamp it. They rely on staff saying, you know, we feel this information is 80% accurate, 70% accurate. It's a plan. It's to say, you know, we know these are our worst assets. These are the ones we're going to fix first. Part of this also talks about growth and incorporating some growth aspects into it, which we've never done in an asset management plan, which would be completely new to us. I think, too, when we first did it in 2013, we did get a grant because of the size of our municipality, and that afforded us to buy software that allowed us to keep track of our assets. But to do this correctly, you really do need a dedicated asset management person or department. We struggle as it is, just trying to get it done what we can get done. So we're not that far off. We're doing a good job. We're responsible. We know that we need an asset management plan in order to do a correct budget. So it's not something that should have to be forced. You're doing it because that's part of how we evolve. It's just let smaller municipalities do what they can to do some of these assessments. Perhaps it's just driving around and doing the assessment. Perhaps you don't need to hire a big engineer and get it stamped. So that's just the point of some of the smaller municipalities. Large municipalities may not have an issue with this, but most municipalities in Ontario are small, the majority of them.
Yeah, thank you.
So to that end, and thank you very much for that answer, we have a plan. We don't get grants now. We've been told we need to borrow in order for the province to be eligible to get grants, other than the gas tax. And the province now wants a certificate to ensure that the costs we are proposing as the potential costs for our maintenance, that those costs are correct. So therein goes the sepia of the engineer to knock those plans and say, this is correct. So we're adding bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy. And I think that this all goes back to the province wanting to ensure that they're not funding things that aren't certified. I think certified insanity is what small municipalities are going to end up going to. So, like Councillor Rayner, I think that adding that this be circulated to all municipalities in the province of Ontario is an appropriate thing, rather than just what Councillor Bilsma wrote. And further be resolved, the motion be sent to the Minister of Infrastructure, AMO, and all our local MPP, and all municipalities. We can do that with a push of a button electronically, I think. I've been told. Okay, Councillor, some of our staff are going, oop. But there is a way to do that, or get close to it anyway. I think that would be an appropriate amendment to this motion. And I think Councillor Rayner wanted to do that, so I'd be happy to second it at the appropriate time.
Okay. And Councillor Bell, you want to speak? You still want to speak?
Councillor Chichek just addressed everything I wanted to say.
Good. Councillor Bilsma?
Just, you know, I just have one little concern. And look, I think I've established a reputation for being anti-bureaucratic and trying to be fiscally responsible, and I wholeheartedly endorse, the direction of this. But Councillor Chichok did touch on one little thing, and that is, do they use this as leverage then? Like, of course, who knows the reason why they're insisting on an engineer and not trusting municipalities, which are mature and which are responsible. But are we jeopardizing perhaps funding because we're not following their, set rules? And so it's just a concern. I hate being beholden to higher governments when they make you jump through hoops. I think we all do. I think we hate, we just loathe some of the little corny little requirements that bureaucracy require of us. And we scratch our heads and going, why? And it's insulting to the point where sometimes we say, you know what, is this all worthwhile? But it begs the question, is this worthwhile? If we do it their way, or if we don't do it their way, which is what I'd prefer to do, would we perhaps be jeopardizing, I'm no brown noser or any other kind of term you can use for that, but I just want to make sure that we're responsible, that perhaps if we decide, thumb our nose at this type of bureaucracy, that, we may have to shoulder, again, what we've been doing all along, which is not qualify for grants and such. We just shoulder this in a responsibility. We just rise to the occasion and we make sure, you know what, we're not going to follow your silly rules. If you want to withhold the funds from us, then that's a responsibility that we're going to bear. But at least we know at this point, are we putting those funds in jeopardy? If so, I'm willing to still vote in favor of this. And whether other municipalities support us or not, I think it's important enough that we, as West Lincoln, chart our own course and stand firm. And if we stand alone, well, it's still something I think that's legitimate and right to do, as Councillor Rayner put out. But I want to hear an answer regarding the jeopardy of potential grants or whatever, if that's something that might be perceived.
Okay, well, our Director of Finance has indicated she may be able to answer that. So.
Through you, Acting Mayor Ganon, this has not been passed, so the reason we have this resolution is to give input to the province to say, you know what, consider these things. If this does get passed, we always follow the rules. Any grant we have applied for, they've always asked for our asset management plan, and we've included it. And any grant we've ever applied for, we've always asked for our worst assets to be fixed. So I think it's more, the reason we don't get grants, it's a little bit more than that. But this is the time where you can send comments in. And Roma has, done the work for us. And as I mentioned, MFOA has already sent something in. I've also read something from a firm that does a lot of asset management plans, and they're concerned with it because I think they realize that they're asking a lot for municipalities. So I don't think there's any problem in doing this resolution, but whatever the regulations are, I would recommend we follow the regulations when the time comes, and we just would have to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm very satisfied with that answer. It's a good question. At this point, it's an input, so we might as well have our input, and I'm very comfortable with this input.
Okay, thank you. So we need then, I'll check clerk on either side. Can we just add in all of the municipalities in the province, or? Okay, so. Okay, so we have. Okay.
Yeah. That's.
So do you want?
Yeah, all municipalities in the province of Ontario, to Councillor Bilsmo's speech.
To his speech. Well, we're not going to reread the speech. But the end might be, and further be it resolved that copies of this motion be sent to the Minister of Infrastructure, AMO, and our local MPP, Sam Osterhoff, and all other municipalities in the province of Ontario would be your amendment. Is that satisfactory? Yes. Okay, and seconded by, so we need to vote first on the amendment. So all in favor of the amendment? Okay, and then opposed? And now the original motion needs to be as amended. Okay, so now we're going to vote on the original motion as amended. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay. And that.
We're done. Okay. See what happens.
You can move it. Okay, so I think after a long shot. And marathon. Okay, so we now have a communications B portion of that. And Councillor Bell, you have the motion. This is the 4-H request for funding.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma that the request from Michael Chichuk President 4-H Niagara for support for the cost of the intercounty event in the amount of $2,500 to cover awards and prize money be received and it just says and dot, dot.
Dot, dot, dot.
Oh, okay.
Don't do that now.
I want to discuss it.
Okay, so does it need something in the dot, dot, dot before it's discussed? Received? Okay, so the original sentence is received. So now we're open to discussion. Okay, Councillor. Sorry, Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I was very impressed by the presentation tonight from the 4-H Club. It's such a change from what we've seen in the past. These kids are into agriculture. They want to learn about agriculture as compared to developers who take agriculture away. This is such a nice presentation. And the NPEI had 11,500 that Councillor Chichok mentioned. And it was part of the Canada 150, and I believe she said it was to celebrate the youth in the future. This is such a good organization. It's nice to see young people getting involved in agriculture, learning about agriculture, the importance of agriculture. It's so important to this township that it's part of our mission statement, preserving our heritage. And everybody and anybody who knows the 12 municipalities in the region of Niagara, West Lincoln is always noted as the agricultural one. So here's an example of not only are they participating in the 4-H, but they've gone as far as to the Royal Winter Fair and have won. That really speaks highly. Being a graduate of the Agricultural College at Guelph, there's nothing higher for us there than the Royal Winter Fair. It's the ultimate to get to in whatever you're doing, and I can't say enough how proud I am of them to achieve such a level. It really speaks highly. I would like, since this money has come from NPEI, I would like to see that, if I have support, to bring that up to $5,000 to help the 4-H Club, because I think it's something in this township, in Niagara, that we can't emphasize enough, is the importance of agriculture and how it relates to everybody. I mean, the food we eat, it all comes from the ground, no matter what it is, be it grain, be it fruit, be it what you need to feed the animals for the meat. Everything comes from the ground. The agriculture is the ultimate, as water is to life. And for these people to want to participate, especially in a day and age when it's so much simpler to get your little laptop or whatever and stay at home on your little desk and play around and do that, they get out, they get involved, they see nature, they see what it's like. These people are going to lead in the future. And the recognition to give them extra money in order to continue those activities and promote more people into agriculture, I think can't be spoken highly enough. So if I could get support, I would like to see that number changed from 2,500 to 5,000. Thank you. I would like to put a motion forward if I could get a seconder, an amendment to that motion.
So, Councillor Bell? Are you offering to second that?
No, I just want to speak.
Okay, so Councillor Rayner's looking for a seconder.
I will second that, but I need to speak.
Okay, so,
I will second it to put it on the table, Madam Chair, and I want it known that in an abundance of caution, I have before me the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which I have read repeatedly today and many times in my life. And since I have no children, I don't have a spouse, and since I have an interest in common with the electorate generally on this issue, not specifically, and it will not benefit me, I have no conflict. So I will second this for discussion. That doesn't mean that it will pass, but I just put it on the table for discussion.
okay, thank you. So, any further discussion? Councillor Bell, I had you first, so.
Yep. So in the original document that was submitted, they're requesting $5,000, 2,500 from us and 2,500 from Lincoln. And West Niagara Agricultural Center is a joint venture between the West Lincoln and Lincoln. So my question is, I don't have a problem with the $2,500 from West Lincoln. Has Lincoln also donated $2,500? Or is this going to be another YMCA where we donate and the other ones don't? That's my question. So, you know, I mean,
If I could just respond to that, it is my understanding through talking with them about getting ready for a presentation that the commitment has already been made by Lincoln, and so they were,
Okay, and
in
that's-
addition, asking for us, you know, for the other 25.
and I don't have a problem for that. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
And I might as well make it known now, I will not support $5,000 donation. Okay.
Councilor Drosman?
This is a little bit more of a clarity on the motion, because the motion went forward to be received, and we have an amendment to receive it for 5,000.
Yeah, you need to-
So I know the clerk is probably shaking her head, going, "Okay,
Yes.
so we're in a bit of a on the horns of a dilemma here." So
going
firstly, I think it's appropriate to amend it by adding approved. Right, I think that's what the first part of the amendment. So I do believe that there's a consensus around this room to give something. However, at this point, they asked for 2,500, and while I agree wholeheartedly with the speech that Councilor Rayner gave, I'm comfortable with the 2,500. So when it comes time to vote on the amendment that was just put forward to raise it from 2,000 to 500, I would be opposed, but I am looking for on an amendment which would add approved, and so I leave that for the mess
Thank you,
for the
fellas.
deputy mayor to sort out.
I would say that, go ahead. You do that.
Through you to
Work
members
your
of
magic.
council, so in order, I was going to mention that,
Yes.
but didn't get to my turn. The amendment from Councillor Rayner and seconded by Councillor Chichok to amend the amount to 5,000 should also include and add the word be approved, because without that, it doesn't make any sense. So if the mover and seconder agree to that addition, then we can deal with the approval of 5,000 as a motion. If that passes, then we know where we are. If that fails, then Councillor Bell, or rather Councillor Bilesma, could forward a motion to add approved with just the 2,500.
Can I ask a question? So can I, when it comes, it had to be approved, or?
It was approved, or it was dot.
It was
so-
received.
Yeah, so can it be changed to?
We'll do, through you, we'll do that with the second motion.
Okay, so we have to lose the
So
first
if
one.
the,
Hold on.
sorry, if the mover and the seconder agree to the addition of and approve, because it doesn't make sense without it, and we just need a verbal approval of that, then the amendment on the floor would be that, and I just gotta find it here.
Request for-
To amend, to change the 2,500 to 5,000 and add the word and approved. That's what the amendment should be at this point, if you're
Okay.
agreeable.
So are
And if we
you,
don't,
first of all, are you in favor of adding and approve to your motion?
At this point, it doesn't seem relevant.
Okay.
Two councilors already disagreeing and wanting to do 2,500. The math simply tells you that it's irrelevant when it turns out, so we can just.
Well, we haven't decided whether we've even approved it yet, which is why, so either you need to say that, or we need to go the opposite way.
They can withdraw it.
You can withdraw your amendment. Okay. Councillor Chichok.
I would be in favor on a friendly amendment to roll back your amount, to put the approved in and to change the amount to 2,500, because I would hate to see us publicly turning something down. I'd love it to go through it once. You know, we spend too many hours debating. So if Councillor Rayner is happy, I put it on the floor for discussion, rather than withdrawing and starting all over. Why don't you go back, take your amount through a friendly amendment to correct the amendment to 25, agree to have it approved in 2,500.
Through you to members of council, then the part of the amendment that says change it to 5,000 should be removed if the mover and seconder agree, and then all you would have on there is be approved at 2,500.
Okay, so are you willing, mover and seconder, to withdraw your friendly amendment? As a friendly amendment, are you willing to withdraw So the original amount was $2,500. And you,
Just asking very nicely.
Received and approved, that's what Councilor Gilson said.
no, it was just received. We never did approve it.
No, but that's what should have been added before this amendment came through. It was kind of done in reverse order.
Yes,
That's
because
That's what I was
you
trying to
wanted,
say.
you wanted to increase the money, which was wonderful, but we hadn't even voted to approve it yet, or looked at that discussion, so. I think the bottom line is, we have to just figure out the correct way to give them their money, because everybody seems in agreement with that, so.
I
Madam-
give you two options. You can withdraw it, and someone else can put approved on, you can put approved on, or you can vote on it, and it will get voted down because of the amount you've put in. So you can withdraw or vote on it, it's up to you as mover and seconder.
Okay. Does that work?
So we're withdrawing that
So we're
motion.
withdrawing the
So we
motion.
need a motion to amend and add the words "and approve."
So moved. Seconded. We were the original movers. or
Moved in
seekers.
second, by the original movers and seconders, so that,
So the amendment on the floor now is to add the words "and approve."
okay, all in favor of adding "and approved" as opposed to the original which said "and received." So call the vote on that. All in favor? Okay, so,
Original motion as amended.
okay, so we need the original motion. I put as amended down there, but, okay. And I will now state the original motion as amended has carried. I thought I just voted on that. Oh, my goodness, you guys.
You voted on the amendment.
You're
All
doing
right.
fine.
You're doing great.
Okay. Really, let's vote on this motion as amended. All in favor? Terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Move on. Report of committee.
No, are you okay? All right. So the next thing on the agenda is mayor's remarks, but I am actually going to do acting mayor's remarks, and I'm going to do them, so bear with me. In the absence of the mayor, I would like to take a few minutes to highlight just a few of the wonderful community building events that have occurred during the summer months. The things that I've chosen to highlight reflect the many opportunities that our residents of all ages have been given that allow them to engage with others in social, entertaining, or informative ways. Most events, of course, included some type of eating activity, as often is the case in the summer. In mentioning the following, I realize I may be leaving out many events. However, I would like to acknowledge that it was the hardworking organizers of each and every event in our township, some of whom were township staff, but most of whom are volunteers, who together with the various generous local sponsors have made these events and other events possible. So, of course, the summer was kicked off, as we all know, with a bang, with both Poultry Fest and West Lincoln's Canada 150 Block Party being well attended and wonderful family events. Over the summer, it followed events such as the Fulton Hall Pulled Pork Dinner featuring homemade pie for dessert, the Legion's Community Event, which was last weekend, which started with a daytime event for families with free activities for kids, sponsored by our local Family Dollar and Discount Store, followed by the Legion's Community Pig Roast Dinner with musical entertainment having been provided by local talent Stephanie Duchesne, who, by the way, is competing next weekend at the CNE. So the Music in the Park series, due to weather, 2 were indoors and 2 were outside. There was a great variety of musical talent with different fun-filled game at each intermission that allowed for a winner to be presented with a box of fudge donated by local Alexander's Fudge. A musical afternoon and another evening of music were provided by the Smithville United and Merritt United churches respectively, accompanied, of course, by food. Various local vacation Bible school opportunities were provided for kids aged 4 to 12, and additionally various day camps with exciting themes for kids were provided by the township staff. Since we've already addressed at this meeting the importance of 4-H in our community, I'm also including the many weekly ongoing activities that are being provided by a great many volunteer leaders in preparation for the upcoming fall fair displays and competitions. And additionally, there are also many less formal get-togethers and street party celebrations, especially in some of our newer neighborhoods, where people came together to get to know each other better or simply to celebrate Canada 150 with friends and family. And finally, I want to talk about, and you won't get a surprise of this, our library system. Library usage for the month, which takes in the 3 branches, Casterville, Wellandport, and Smithville, usually reaches around 6,000 to 7,000 uses a month. And this month of July, it topped the 9,000 use mark. In fact, 9,234 uses in the month of July, up 53% from the previous month, due mostly because of the number of program opportunities for children and adults alike that were organized and provided by our library staff. So I know I've gone quickly, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all who worked so very hard to make West Lincoln a better place for all ages this summer. You all helped in your own way to contribute to a continued and improved sense of community in West Lincoln. Thank you. So, moving on, report of committee. Is it? Okay, nothing there. Reconsideration, we have nothing to reconsider tonight. We don't have any motions to rescind. So we'll move on to other business, section A, consent agenda items. All items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial and will be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. So I'm going to read them since the resolution is going forward. So consent agenda items 1, the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes of June 8th. 2017, the Heritage Committee minutes from May 23rd, 2017, the Multi-Municipal Wind Turbine Working Group minutes from June 8th, 2017, the West Lincoln Public Library Board minutes from July 18th, 2017, the final 2016 audited financial statement, and this is for our information. The draft was previously approved, just a reminder to council. And 6, the report RFDT-18-17, the delegation of authority with respect to the Assessment Review Board. So the recommendation is that council hereby approves the following consent agenda items. Item 1B and is hereby accepted, and items 2, 3, 4, and 5B and is hereby received for information. Item 6B and is hereby received, and the recommendations contained therein are adopted with the exception of items. Councillor Chichok, you have that resolution?
And you read it so well.
Nothing needs to be pulled? Okay. Nobody's pulling anything? Great. Okay, so having heard that resolution, I'm going to ask one more time if there's anything anybody wants to say and call for the vote on that, please. All in favor? Good. And that also carries. Okay. Section B, planning, building, environmental items. A, the Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Treble, report number PD-113-17, recommendation report, review of Spring Creek Secondary Plan. And Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chichok that report PD-113-17 regarding review of Spring Creek Secondary Plan dated August 21st, 2017 be received for information purposes.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? Comments? Okay. I heard a no. Okay. So I will call for the vote on that resolution. All in favor? Any opposed? Good. Okay. That motion carries. Okay. Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble again. Report number PD 112-17. Recommendation report amendment to fire route bylaw, West Niagara Agricultural Society, and in brackets WNAS. And Councillor Bell, you have that resolution?
I do. Move by myself and seconded by Councillor Chichok that report PD 112-17 regarding amendment to fire route bylaw, West Niagara Agricultural Society, dated August 21st, 2017, be received, and that the bylaw amended to the fire route bylaw 97-2030 as amended by bylaw 2017-52 be approved by the Township Council.
Okay, thank you. Is there a member of council who has a question or a comment to make on that? No, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Thank you. That vote carries. Okay. Item C, under Planner 2, Garrett Bormer, and Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, report number PD 1-17, recommendation report, implementation of commercial building facade grant program for downtown Smithville Community Improvement Program. And Councillor Bills, may you have that resolution?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell, that report PD 111-17 regarding implementation of commercial building facade grant program for downtown Smithville Community Improvement Program dated the 21st of 2017 be received, and that staff be and are hereby authorized to insert the attached notice in the local newspaper to notify the public that facade grants proposals will be accepted until October 6, 2017, and that a future staff recommendation report shall present all proposals that are received in response to the notice of commercial building facade grant program, along with recommendation, if any, of proposals to approve.
Thank you. Okay. So, councillors, you've heard that resolution. Are there any questions or comments to be made? Okay. Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, and that resolution carries. Okay, now we're at item E, Chief Building Official Jeff Menard and Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, report number PD-114-17, recommendation report, installation of no parking signage on Streamside Drive. And Councillor Rayner, you have that.
Mayor, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Chicho. One, that report PD-114-17 regarding installation of no parking signage on Streamside Drive dated August 21st, 2017 be received. And two, that a bylaw be passed to amend parking bylaw 89-2000 to establish no parking restrictions on the southeast side of Streamside Drive from the intersection of Gateway Avenue to the end of Streamside Drive at Regional Road 20. And that three, that signage be installed in accordance with this bylaw.
Okay, again, councillors, you've heard the resolution. Are there any questions or comments? Nope, seeing none, I'll call for the vote on that. All in favor? Good. Okay, moving forward, we're at Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, report number PD 115-17, recommendation report, site plan approval for mirrors. And Councillor Bell, you have that resolution.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Chichak. The report PD 115-17 regarding multi-use recreational site MERS project. Site plan review dated August 21st, 2017 be received, and that staff be and hereby authorized to proceed with obtaining a survey and a complete 3-meter road widening conveyance into the region of Niagara and expense the process to the MERS project, and that the bylaw to authorize conveyance be presented once the survey is completed.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Chichak.
I just have a comment, and that is that I spoke with our staff a little before the meeting, and I know this is a planning report, but it refers to specified items by Kalos Engineering, August 2nd, on page 266 of our agenda. And in 266, item 2, there's a comment that it was noted that servicing for the future band shell and future greenhouse are missing from the submission. Public Works confirms through the meeting, it was agreed that the sanitary service for the band shell should be deleted, but it doesn't talk about the servicing for the greenhouse, the future greenhouse. And I want to be careful, because again, it's going back to my money thing. But on the next page, from Mr. Hudema to Mr. Treble, it talks about specified items, missing servicing to future greenhouse. So I don't want this to be misconstrued, but we were very clear when we passed the motion to approve this that certain items were going to be left out. If a future council or this council wants to add other things, band shells, greenhouses, or anything else, they were to be done then. But right now, it's talking about a missing, servicing to the future greenhouse. It's not in existence at this moment. That's not what council approved. So I'm troubled that it's still sitting here as commentary and to pieces of information that staff are dealing with. And at some place, we're going to say, oh my goodness, we're going to have to put that in. And it was never in the plan at this point.
Exactly.
So there's my clarity. And, you know, so if we have a change where it says, oh golly gee, we better put in that servicing, well, it wasn't in the original approval. So I don't want us to have that, and if I'm correct, through you, Madam Acting Mayor, it was my understanding from Mr. Julian that he was making it very clear that these things should not be in this report. So if I'm wrong, correct me, but
Okay.
through you to Mr. Julian.
Mr. Julian, would you like to comment on that?
Through you, Acting Mayor, to Councillor Chichuk. Councillor Chichuk's correct. This was a suggestion by our consultant that was not supported by staff, and it has been clarified.
So they are removed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Belsman?
Thank you. So as I understand this, it's actually, the gist of this is there's a 3-meter road widening consideration for for the region on West Street. And I'm just a little, in effect, the municipality is selling 3 meters of that little strip of road or of land from the MERS site to the region to do their work, upcoming work, I guess, and service to West Street. Is that how I understand this?
Through you, Madam Chair, at the time of site plan applications, whether it be township initiated or privately initiated, the region and actually the township have the right to ask for road widenings if you have set policies in your official plan. So in this case, the region has a policy that says that Highway 20, Regional Road 20 should be a set width, and if it's deficient, they have the right to make an ask for additional lands to get half of the additional amount needed, presuming that the other would come from the other side at some point. So that's what the region is asking for here. We're to convey it at our own expense, free and clear of all encumbrances to the region. Doesn't have to be done before we can commence groundbreaking and construction. It just has to be done as a commitment through the site plan approval.
Okay, so this is very similar to road allowances that are a little bit deficient, and whenever we do an application or a variance on we take that opportunity to take some of these 60-foot road allowances and make them the proper 66, and this is in that. It's not necessarily, I wondered if it had anything to do with making a right-hand turn lane or a left-hand stacking lane in and out of the property or anything like that. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just a matter of road widening.
That was my understanding, is that?
Madam Acting Mayor, that is correct. This is standard, very similar to what happens in Caister with almost every severance. Every property in Caister seems to have to give land because of the width of the roads in the Caister ward. So this is very similar.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
very
thank you.
comfortable with
Anything
that. Yeah,
further
thank you.
from any member of council? Councilor Rayner?
I just have a comment with regards to the project, as council is aware, I did not support it. Therefore, it would be inappropriate for me to vote on the process of this subject matter whenever it comes up. So I decline to vote.
Okay, well, nothing further from anyone? No further comments, no further questions? Then I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Okay, and that motion carries. Okay. And still, moving on, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, report number PD 116-17, the recommendation report for the Wellandport Community Center property at 5042 Regional Road 63, the Wellandport Library Expansion Site Plan Review, file number 2100-008-17. And Councillor Belsman, you have that resolution.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chichok. That report PD-116-17 regarding Wellandport Community Center property at 5042 Regional Road 63, Wellandport Library Expansion Site Plan Review, file number 2100-008-17, dated August 21st, 2017, be received, and that staff be and are hereby authorized to proceed with obtaining a survey and completing a 1-meter road widening conveyance to the region of Niagara and expense to the library project, and that I bylaw to authorize the conveyance be presented once the survey is complete.
No, it's not.
It's this one. I whacked it right off.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, you've heard that resolution. Are there any questions or comments about that? Councillor Chichok and then Councillor Bell.
It's a very small question. On page 285, it says the township planning staff have reviewed the multi-use recreational site plan. Is the Wellandport
Oh.
Library?
Typo.
I just want to make sure that someday in history, we're not going to say, we didn't really look at Wellandport. We looked at, I know it's small, but the clerk loves it.
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, I can respond by saying
Please
it's a draft of a letter that staff had prepared as an attachment to the report, and perhaps a little too quickly we cut and paste, I would assume, from a previous letter.
I'm impressed, but you know how much I like that word, M-U-R-S.
Yes, so I will make
Thank
sure
you
with
for
Garrett
that
it's corrected in the
clarification.
morning.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Oh, okay. You found that too? Good, okay.
What goes up the chimney? Smoke.
Good job. All right, well, you've heard the resolution. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Good, thank you. That motion also carries. And finally, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, read the Municipal Comprehensive Review and next steps. And this is a verbal update. Mr. Treble, please.
I will be brief, Madam Acting Mayor. This item is just to give you a quick report to say that regional staff and township planning staff have been meeting recently to talk through the process to look at how West Lincoln will accommodate the growth targets that the region has allocated for 2041 to West Lincoln, which is indicating that our population for the township should be somewhere around 30,000 by 2041. The region has hired a consultant to help guide the process at the regional level, an individual from Markham that Councillor Chichok knows of. He is to guide and assist us through this process, and the region has a report going to their committee on the 6th of September. So I wanted to give this committee a verbal, or this council a verbal update, so that you're not caught off guard when that report goes to Regional Planning Committee. I will have a follow-up report on the September 11th Planning Committee of this township, just so that we're on the same page. However, it's a few days after it's already been released to the region, so I wanted to do a verbal update just to let you know we're embarking on the process, working jointly, and trying to sort out the best avenue forward and what process and projects have to be completed and what the timeline will look like.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else who has a question or a comment for Mr. Treble on that? Councillor Rayner.
I just wish they could use different acronyms instead of my initials.
Sorry.
When I see our next steps, I wonder if they're on the principal's office or where they're going.
Maybe so. Better watch out. Thank you. Okay. Section C, Administrations, Finance, and Fire items. And the first item there is amendment to budget, Treasurer, Director of Finance, Donna D. Philippes. Report, RFD-T-16-17, accumulated operating surplus as of December 31st, 2016, amendment to budget. Councillor Chichok, you have that resolution.
I do, thank you very much. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma that report RFD T-16-17 regarding accumulated operating surplus as of December 31st, 2016, amendment to budget be received, and that Council authorizes the transfer of $100,000 of the 2016 accumulated operating surplus to be used as revenue in the 2018 budget, and that Council authorizes the transfer of $10,800 of the 2016 accumulated operating surplus to the Winter Control Reserve, and that Council authorizes the transfer of $7,500 of the accumulated operating surplus to the Facilities Reserve, and the Council authorizes the transfer of $127,565 of the 2016 accumulated operating surplus to the Contingency Reserve.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chichok. Ms. DeFilippis, I'm going to ask you first. Did you want to speak to that at all?
I think
Or
you
do you
should.
just want to accept questions? Nothing further? Okay. Does anyone have a question or a comment to make on that resolution? No? Good.
I think,
Councillor Chichok.
I do, I have a question, just so that we remember. What was the total surplus for the year? 2016? The total goes for 5 items.
Through you, Acting Mayor Ganon, the accumulated surplus is 345,865.
As compared to a budget, we had budgeted for a surplus of,
Through you, Councillor Acting Mayor Ganon, we actually, it's interesting, we actually budget for technically a deficit because we're using the prior year surplus to help fund it. So the deficit wasn't as high as we thought it would be, so we have a higher accumulated surplus. It's a little complicated, but what's important is that we have a surplus at the end of the day.
Thank you, and because of that, we're moving around the surplus to the various reserves because it's there. But lest we forget, the first $100,000 of increased costs for 2018 is actually coming from a surplus that we got in 2016. So, remember, and that surplus usually comes from fees and taxes. So it may have been that we charged a little bit more in 2016, but we're going to use it to reduce our needs in 2018 as we strike the budget. Am I correct? Acting Mayor, our Director of Finance.
Well, that's getting very ridiculous, but I would like to say that when you're talking the millions of dollars that you're dealing with, to be at a point where you're looking at a couple of $100,000 difference, I think that's marvelous.
$8 million, it's not a heck of a lot. I'm just pointing out the fact that we've had a good year. Staff have done a great job.
An excellent job,
And then
yes.
the first $100,000 that we're going to have to spend is actually because staff did a better than usual job. So you're going down the wrong path. I was actually trying to say, we need to remember, we might have raised taxes, but we may also have been more efficient. I'm not looking for it, but I'm just saying, it's there for 2018 for the benefit of the township.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so you've heard the resolution. I'm going to call for a vote on this resolution. All in favor? And that motion carries also. Okay, second is, next portion of that is Deputy Clerk Joanne Shime report, RFD-C-09-2, 2017, the addition of a new school crosswalk location at Wade Road and West Street. And Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Chichok. That morning report, RFP-C-09-2017. Addition of a new school crosswalk location at Wade Road and West Street dated August 21st, 2017 be received. And 2, that a crossing guard be placed at the new school crosswalk location at Wade Road and West Street commencing the 2017-18 school year.
Okay, thank you. Right. Any further discussion on this? Comments or questions? Councillor Bell?
Just clarification, I, under the current situation, the addition of a school crosswalk location has been discussed. So we're moving a crosswalk to Wade Road, but then financial implications is that there'll be an increase of $2,200 for the balance of the remaining 2017. Would not the crossing guard from the old St. Martin's School just move down the street to Wade Road? Like, I'm not sure why we got an increase of $2,200. So that would be for Ms. Shimmy, if she
Yeah,
could
it
answer
is.
it. Yeah, please.
It's under her name, so go ahead, Ms. Shimmy.
The crosswalk is necessary at Wade Road and West Street because the sidewalks don't clearly go right down on the south side of West Street towards St. Martin's School. The crosswalk that was in front of St. Martin's Church is being moved to South Grimsby Road 5 and West Street. So that's actually the location of the school crossing, but we've had to add a second crossing because the sidewalks don't clearly go down South on the south side of West Street down to South Grimsby Road 5. And we still have to get children across from the south side to the north side, up to South Grimsby Road 5, and at that point, they'll cross back over to the south side.
It wasn't in there. I thought that's
Yeah,
what it was.
yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
Good. Anything further? All right, so having had that good clarification, I will call for a vote on this issue. All in favor? Okay. Okay, and after all this time, oh no, we're not quite there yet, sorry. Acting CAO and Clerk Carolyn Langley, re-special council meeting Monday, September 11th, 2017, for Wellandport Library Project tender approval. And so, Councillor Bell, you have a resolution there.
Maybe move on south and seconded by Councillor Rayner. That a special council meeting be scheduled on Monday, September 11th, 2017 at 6 p.m.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Councillor Bellsma.
Just a quick one. Why 6?
Quick answer, quick question. Is that fine? All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All in favor of the resolution? All in favor? Okay. That resolution passes. Thank you. Okay, now, Fire Chief Dennis Fisher, read the monthly update, July 2017.
Thank you, Mayor. Station 1 had 22 calls, Station 2 had 4, and Allen had 3 now. Lloyd Crooks at Station 2 has decided to retire with 11 years of service. He retired as of August 16th. Recruit training is ongoing, and they're all doing very well. No promotions, nothing to fire prevention for the month of July. Apparatus fleet, we completed ladder testing on all the ground ladders and the aerial, and we finished apparatus pump testing as well for the month of July, which all passed with flying colors. And the only other thing is we did that mutual aid call in Grimsby on the tree fires. We were there for about 7.5 hours.
Okay.
That's about it for the month of July.
Questions or comments for the chief? Councillor Reiner?
Thank you, through you to the chief. Maybe I missed it, but you always start out with, we had X number of calls at Station 1 and X number of calls at Station 2. The other thing I was concerned about was that since Grimsby has a new $4+ million fire hall out in the country, that we probably wanted Station 2 to be looking the same down the road with that request come through. So I was a little nervous about that since there was a big picture of Grimsby when I figured you'd want to get the same look out there in the country.
That's coming in 2020.
Pretty impressive looking building.
Yes, it is.
Very nice building.
Okay, Councillor Billsma, and then Councillor Chichon.
Just briefly. Because Councilor Arena did bring it up, obviously there's a training component to that Grimsby station. And is that something you're eyeballing? Is that gonna, like, is that good for us as well, like on a neighborly sort of?
Councilor Walsman, we've already been in discussions with Chief King down at Grimsby and their training division. We are scheduled to use the training tower in November. The only thing that they're requesting is a 2-day training session for supervisory positions for the use of the tower. We're sending 8 guys down next month to do that training. But yes, we will be absolutely taking advantage of that.
Great. No further.
Councillor Chichon?
I think we should move forward on that historical look that we were looking for when we're looking at fire stations. That's my only comment.
Okay. Well, I have a little more serious question, and I'm back just asking about the simplified risk assessment. I know from the master plan it was done, or it was suggested that it needed to be done every 3 to 5 years, preferably yearly. That's kind of ridiculous. But I also realized that it hadn't been done since 2012. So knowing it's the summer months and the schedules are all off, I'm wondering if you are looking at the fall as a start to begin looking at that since there have been so many changes.
I'm about halfway through it.
Okay.
I have started it. I have some things to sit down and projecting this to finalize.
Okay.
But I don't have it done by.
Okay. I thought it was an excellent master plan, but I know that there were several things that were identified as things that we needed to start looking at, so I just wondered where your thinking was about that.
I have it about half done right now.
Okay.
But there's some items in there that I have to discuss with.
Okay, thank you.
Hope to have it done by the end of October.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay. Nothing further? Okay. All right. I guess you're done. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to Section D, Public Works, Recreation, and Arena items. The first item there is Director of Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Julian, report PW-26-2017, hot mix spot repair tender authorization. And Councillor Billsma, you have that resolution?
I do, and moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rayner that report RFP PW 26-2017 hot mix spot repair tender authorization dated August 21st, 2017 be received, and that council accept the tender submission by Circle P Paving Inc. for the paving of hot mix spot repairs in the amount of $149,215.50 plus HSD, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter into an agreement with Circle P Paving Inc.
Thank you. Councilors, you've heard this resolution. Are there any questions or comments about this? Councilor Rayner.
Is this the same thing that was done last fall, with just various places throughout the township? We've got these people fixing sections like culverts that were put in and replaced. It's just bringing everything up to speed on repair work that we've done during the year.
Mr. Julian?
Through you, Acting Mayor, to Councilor Rayner. Yes, Councilor, you are correct. This is an annual maintenance thing that's actually done through our maintenance budget.
Thank you. Nothing further? Seeing no other hands, I'll call for the vote on this. All in favor? Okay.
Through you,
Ms. Rayner, you want to say
members of
something?
council, I noticed that the bylaw that is authorized under this report has not been included on the agenda. That bylaw can be prepared. It's quite simply to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement with Circle P. If we could add bylaw 2017-94, I'll prepare that bylaw and we could add it to the motion, and that authorization would be completed as required. So when the motion comes up for bylaws, which I believe Councillor Rayner has, if we could add 94, and that will be an authorizing bylaw for Circle P.
So this is fine the way
When we
it
get
is, and
into
you're going to
bylaws,
get to
yeah.
that. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then moving on to the miscellaneous items, we've already looked after Councillor Chichok and the NPEI, wonderful news about money. Did you want to speak any further to that? Well,
Through you to members of council, when that money is received, then I would suggest that a report would come back to the committee.
okay, so we spent part, but there's more to go. Fair enough? Okay, so now we're up to member of council remarks. Councillor Bell, I'll start with you. Is there anything you want to say tonight? Councillor Billsma?
Nothing.
Councillor Chichok?
See you at the fair.
Councillor Rayner?
I have a question I'd like to ask the CEO.
Okay.
With just regards to AMO's very politically incorrect request to have the HST increased, representing all the municipalities in the province of Ontario. Was this township, did I miss something? Was I away? Did we support or direct AMO, since they represent us, 454th of us, I guess, to go to the province with such a ludicrous request without discussing it with us, or did we, is this just done there, they just took it on themselves that they thought that we would support this?
Through you to Councillor Rayner, I would have to investigate that and report back, actually.
Through you to the acting CEO, does AMO not represent the municipalities of the province of Ontario, and therefore if they're going to take something as bold, as politically incorrect as this, and a few other words I'd like to use and I'm not going to, that they would have at least consulted with the municipalities, or at least given us forewarning that on behalf of the majority of the municipalities that they inquired about, that this was the direction that they received in order to proceed as they did? Because it makes it look like West Lincoln was on board with this, and this was a great idea, and West Lincoln's right behind it, where we didn't even discuss it. I got lost in this. I thought they're supposed to represent us, which means I should have had a heads up before it was even presented. Am I missing something? Can you please fill me in?
Through you, AMO usually does circulate lots of bulletins and information to the municipality. And so I'm going to have to investigate this one, though I can't off the cuff just tell you what the situation is with it.
Because I think this is a very embarrassing situation. I mean, the Premier has the lowest rating of any Premier in the province of Ontario in the history of politics, and they wanted to further do this to the province, knowing that it's, well, it's just, obviously they're a hitter. But the point is, why are you doing this and using us as a scapegoat? Like, I don't get this at all. This is very unprofessional to me. Like, if they're gonna try something like this, they should have at least informed us that they were gonna do it, but first of all, asked our opinion of it. So at least if the Premier wanted to check who are the ones that wanted to further drop her ratings in the province, that she would at least know which municipalities were behind it. Because I don't believe West Lincoln had a say in it, unless, like I said, I missed something.
Through you to Councillor Rayner, I will investigate and report back to you.
Thank you.
There was a little bit, if I could just make a statement, I don't know anything about any input, but there were several things in various AMO reports indicating that that was the direction that they were looking at. That was the only thing I really saw together with that, was some of the reports that come through that are sent to us. So, okay. There are no new items of business, and so that moves us to bylaws. Okay, so we have bylaw. I'm going to read these as gang because I think, Councillor Rayner, I'm just going to check with you. Do you just have numbers on your resolution? Okay, so I will take this moment to read them then. So bylaw A, bylaw 2017-89 to confirm proceedings of July 24th, 2017 regular and July 31st, 2017 special council meetings. B, bylaw 2017-90 to amend bylaw 97-2030 as amended, which designates private roadways as fire routes along which no parking of vehicles shall be permitted, and that includes the West Niagara Agricultural Society. C, bylaw 2017-91 to amend bylaws 89-2000, which regulates traffic and parking on township roads, no parking on one side on Streamside Drive. And D, bylaw 2017-92 to authorize the treasurer or his or her delegate to file complaints to the Assessment Review Board relating to requests for reconsideration of assessment and to settle assessment appeals and requests for consideration of assessment where appropriate. And
if I could read 94.
94.
Through you to members of council, bylaw 2017-94 would be an authorizing bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement with Circle P Paving for the spot mix repair program.
Yeah, there is
93 is following closed session.
I have it.
Okay. So you will have then, Councillor Rayner, 89, 90, 91, 92, 94. Is that correct?
Just add. Yeah.
So
just
add
it.
94, and then we've had it read, so we know what we're dealing with. Okay, thank you. Yes?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Chichak that leave be granted to introduce bylaw 2017-89, 2017-90, 2017-91, 2017-92, and 2017-94, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto. Any rule of this council to the contrary is notwithstanding.
Thank you. Okay. So, councillors, you've heard this resolution. I'm going to call for the vote right away. Is there anyone, all in favor, first of all? And that will pass. Okay, with the passing of those bylaws, that concludes the open session of our council meeting tonight. So thank you to those who've spent this long time, and thank you to those who attended previously, who've now gone home, who may be perhaps watching this behind. And we're now going to prepare to move into confidential matters. Councillor Bell, you have the resolution to take us into closed session?
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rayner. The next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001. A, Treasury Director of Finance, report RFD T-17-17 amendment to budget, unsuccessful tax sale, properties, legal property matters, acceptable closed session exemptions, a proposed or pending acquisition of disposition of land by municipality or board. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose. B, Director of Planning and Building, legal matter, OMB appeal, closing verbal update, acceptable closed session exemptions, personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, litigation and potential litigation, including matters before administration or tribunals affecting municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. C, Director of Planning and Building, legal matter, OMB, appeal, Phillips Homes, removal of Holden symbol, verbal update, acceptable closed session exemptions, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administration, tribunals affecting the municipality or the local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bell. Okay, I've heard that resolution taking us into closed session. All in favor? Okay, and that motion carries. So we're going to declare a brief recess at 10:17.